good to go. Folks, would you join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everyone to the January 28th meeting of the Town of Canandaigua Planning Board. Let me first introduce folks here at the dais. We have, let's start out with Kim Burkhardt, our remote facilities coordinator. Karine Hatch is our recording secretary. Active on the board tonight is Tim Schneider, our alternate member, but again, active because of our need for him to step up. Thanks for stepping up. Amanda Van Laken, who is our planning board member, Bob LaCourse, planning board member. I'm Chuck Euler, planning board chairman. We got Kristen Smith, our zoning officer, Eric Cooper, representing MRB, and Chris Nadler, our planning board attorney. So we're going to follow the agenda tonight as published. So really, the first item on the agenda is privilege of the floor. Is anyone here or out there want to address the board regarding an issue that is not on the agenda? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. All right, we'll move on then. There were two hearings that needed to be published in the local newspaper, and it was published in the Daily Messenger on 1/24, January 24th, for both the Cheney and the Uptown Landing applications that we'll be discussing tonight. So they've been duly published. All right, let's get right into the agenda. The first item is CPN 2024-129. I think Man LaRue representing property owners are Gerber Homes, who are requesting a final site plan for a single lot at 5228 Foster Road, affectionately known as Lot 2E of the Foster Road subdivision. So Greg, why don't you tell us a little bit about this particular lot?
Okay, good evening, Greg McMahon from McMahon LaRue. Lot 2E was not part of the most recent Foster Road subdivision. It was one of two frontage lots that had previously been subdivided. This lot has frontage only on Foster Road, so it's basically a conventional residential lot. The plan that we have before you shows the proposed footprint. There were architectural plans submitted as part of the application. We did receive a comment letter from MRB back in, I think it's around the 7th or 8th of January, which we did revise the plans in accordance with that letter, and those were uploaded, the most recent plans uploaded to Cloud Permit, and I believe that's what's up on the screen right now. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. It will connect the sanitary sewer out in Foster Road, public water. Where there is a part of the preliminary overall plans, there's a drainage swale that runs down the east property line. That easement for that swale has been filed, and the filing information is shown on the plan. And I think with that, I answer any questions that you have.
Board members, any questions?
Greg, I had a couple for you.
Sure.
Of course, but I had a couple. I was out there yesterday. Your driveway that you have posted in here, it's not on the exact same location that's shown, that currently has an access, right? There's an access point on that lot already.
There, yes, more
Okay.
than likely, but yeah, that would, I don't know exactly where it is, but this was proposed to align with the location of the garage on the house.
So, yeah, I understand. That's what I asked, I can't remember, what's his name? Anthony's dad, where's Rocco. But that has an access. My question is, are you gonna take it out? Because it's not shown here on the plan. Two, it has a culvert. And you don't show a culvert here on here. I was wondering if there's is a need for a culvert.
There's no need for a culvert out at the right of way or out in the right of way. There is a culvert, as you can see, about midway back the driveway, midway back on the
Yeah.
driveway.
Right,
That's going to be conveying the drainage. So
okay, so not at the road, but further toward the
further
house.
towards the house.
There's behind this house, we talked a lot about this. I remember when we did the subdivision on all of them. There was comments from the neighbor to the left here about water holding there, and I noticed there was a swale going all the way down that line.
Yes.
My question was, right now, I know that it's all rough cut up right now, but now there's a pond behind this lot. What are you gonna, how are you gonna move that water away from there for
That's
the next lot back?
That's being worked on right now. There was a meeting, representatives of our office and the town met out there last week regarding erosion control items and measures. There was an updated erosion control plan for the entire project, which was an amendment to the current SWIP, was submitted to the town, I believe, yesterday or Friday, I'm not sure which. So, and then work to remedy some of the issues out there is currently underway. We've looked at the drainage issues, and there are plans in the works to take care of all of those issues, which have become apparent again with the work out there once they started clearing and grubbing.
It's good that it's not gonna go the direction of west there. Toward his house. Looks like it's all gonna go toward the other lots in the back. And
It's gonna run around the rear of lots 1 and 2, I believe, in the rear on the cul-de-sac or on the turnaround back there. And it'll run in a swale around the back there.
Behind 3.
And it's the grading will be updated. They're trying to do a lot of that now, but the conditions are really rough right now for trying to get good drainage.
Now, the next question I have is really, I don't know about towards you, but maybe Eric. It was noted in your MRB comments, a 13-foot driveway. Our standard had been 12. I looked it up underneath all of our planning. And the only thing I could find is a 13-foot detail. It used to be in our plans, but it's not in there anymore. So just I guess the question to the town, are we gonna stick with a 13-foot?
In talking to the code enforcement officer, he said that it's 13 feet within the right of way, and Mike's on the, correct me if I'm wrong, but probably on the private side. So my comment was a misreading of the detail, and Mike Murphy corrected me on that.
So it's gonna be 12 or
12.
12? So you show 13.
We revised it based on the comment letter, but
Right, that's what I thought.
we can change it back.
Well, it's up to you, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, that's what,
I mean-
we need to have it clear though for us, so.
Yeah.
It's 12, that's because there's another one coming up that's 13 also. Okay, perfect.
That's a good question.
Nope, that's all I had. Greg. Thank you.
Okay,
Greg, maybe with that foot that you're saving in blacktop, by the length of the driveway, you can possibly put a turnaround
There's
up
one.
there.
we have one in the driveway. There's one show.
Okay,
Just on the, as you look down the driveway to the right.
Yeah.
There's
the offset there.
an offset.
Okay, but you don't want to back on the Foster.
No, that allows enough room for a car to back out of the garage, back in and go out full.
How does the front of this house align with the neighbor to the west, as far as setback to the street? About the same? I was trying to measure it on Encore.
I honestly, I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Because most of these houses on Foster pretty much are the same distance back from the road. And you don't want this thing sort of sticking out like a sore thumb closer to the road, so. Can we check that?
I can check that, you know, that,
I looked at that too, and this lot is not like any other lot. These two lots are 30,000 square,
Yeah,
where the other ones go back like 3 acres or so. They're
you go all
longer.
the way back to the gorge,
Yeah, they're much longer.
you know, the front setback is 60 feet and this house is set at 84. So we are a little bit behind the front setback, but I'll take a look at it.
So, I know in the discussion of the overall plan, there was concerns about some dedicated easements, and not dedicated, but defined easements. I don't think this lot had one of those
It
easements.
does.
It's got a
Well,
drainage easement, not the private one that was kind of.
No, the drainage easement, I know we were talking about.
Yeah.
To convey water, stormwater across other lots.
This, yes, this, it runs down the east property line. And it's half of the easement is on this lot and half of the easement is on the adjoining lot. And that easement was reviewed by the town, has been
Yep.
filed with the clerk.
And it was on the recorded subdivision.
Yes.
That was a 10-foot easement?
Um,
I think that's what we were talking about.
10-foot wide
Yeah.
private drainage easement.
Okay, I know there was some concern from Kevin Mulvaney that he felt that easement might be a little narrow, that it should be a wider easement.
Is it that one or is it the one that's more?
He just said, common easements that run across this property. He didn't define, I know there's another one down at lot 5, which is probably takes more water from across the road. Well, let's just check that, make sure Kevin's comfortable with the 10-foot, or I think Jim and Kevin were talking, so if Jim Fletcher is comfortable, that's something we, the planning board can live with. I think, Greg, in your title block down there, you have lot 2, that should be 2E, and I think you have an address different than the 5228.
It's, well, it's lot 2 based on the 2021 Foster Road subdivision, and we give the filed map, so it's true, when it was subdivided, it was labeled lot 2, but for our purposes on the preliminary overall, we just called it 2E for 2 existing, just because we have a lot 2, and we didn't want to. It's
Well,
confusing.
you
but-
could have 2 lot 2s in the
Yeah,
same subdivision, so please, would you change the title block to 2E?
sure.
There's no confusion.
Yep.
Driveway width, we did, turnabout, we talked about. Okay, so we do not have a seeker in this because we went through it with the overall. As far as third-party reviews, referrals, we have no comments back from Chester Fire Department. The Ag Committee included there was no loss of ag land. But there was concern about the woods in the back, that no more of the woods be touched than has to be for the construction of the homes, but that doesn't apply to this lot. Jim Fletcher, you saw his notes regarding the sewer backfill
Yeah.
and the water line.
Yep.
The county sewer department had concern about the detail sheets, making sure you had the right detail sheets in the package.
All those have been addressed and
Okay.
it's in the final approval phases with the county right now.
Eric, anything MRB had concerns about that you want to bring to our attention? Just cover them in the conditions.
Our letter or our comments are in the conditions as per usual, and, Greg, I think has addressed most, if not all of them already.
You will need a highway permit from Jim Fletcher to do the trenching work. And I think that pretty well covers it. Anybody in the audience? Want to address the board regarding this application? If not, anything else from the board? All right, let's move on. So we have a final site plan resolution in front of us. Everybody checked the conditions that cover pretty much what we talked about. Does have the park and rec fee. For a new home. So if everyone's comfortable, why don't we make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve CPN 2024-129 Foster Road. With 13, or we have any addition?
I had the additional condition about the title block being revised to accurately reflect the number. And then just.
Because he said he came in
13 conditions.
And can I suggest one revision to number one, just to specifically state the date of expiration, or you say 180 days, so a period of 180 days to July 27th, 2025, just so we can have that more clearly stated in our resolutions.
Yep, let's count them now,
Is
not
that-
later.
For this one or for all?
I want to make that a standard revision to all of our site plan rules moving forward.
I'm good with that.
So it's-
Okay, I got a motion from Tim, I have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, for discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Greg, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 2, CPN 2024-135, James Cheney. Owns a property at 4075 on Linda Drive. Requesting a special use permit for approval to operate a short-term rental with a maximum capacity greater than 12. And good evening.
Good evening. I'm Liz Schneider. I am with Finger Lakes Premier Properties. I'll be representing James Cheney tonight.
Hey, thanks, Liz. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what Mr. Cheney wants to do? I know we have a lot of information that was submitted by you and.
A lot of information.
Well,
I really appreciate everybody's help. Thank you so much. The property is a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath home, and we're only requesting an occupancy of 12. The home can sleep more than 12, but we're looking to limit it to 12. That road, we understand, is a very residential area, and we'd like to be mindful of that and practice responsible renting. So instead of sleeping 19, we'd like to only sleep 12.
12 is the cutoff.
Is the cutoff.
Yeah.
If the house has the capacity
Oh,
to have an occupancy greater than 12, the way the code's written.
oh,
Oh,
that's a shame.
even if it's requested within parameters.
Well, that makes sense.
Oh, that's easy.
A lot
Okay.
simpler.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we weren't sure what you were going over 12, but if you're gonna stay
We'd
with
like to
12,
keep it at 12. We'd like the permit to say no more than 12 because we will be advertising 12. And we'd like to make sure that the permit does say 12 so that they don't get there, a guest doesn't get there and see 19 on the permit. So we'd like everything to be cohesive.
Mhm.
Makes things very easy.
And all your rules and regs and policies all have 12 on them.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay,
How many parking spaces do you
There's 6 technically,
have? 6 parking.
plus
I
garage
would
space.
personally say there's more, but
Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
of space.
honestly, that's why I was going by 18. I'm like, can you put 9 there? Cause you have that barn above there.
Mhm.
know,
We won't
that-
be advertising the barn. That'll be a locked space.
If I may, I had one question really. Is that on these short-term rentals, and I know your company does really good at this, but keeping people, your guests off the residence property to the north. There's a fence to the south, nothing to the north. Do you have anything in the property that says, no, here's the property line, don't go past this?
There is part of the good neighbor policy is posted right in the house, letting guests know to remain only on the property that they've rented.
I read that, but there's an ability to wander.
We'd be happy to post the survey, a photo of the survey in the house. That way they can see, guests can see the map of where they can and cannot go.
That'd be good.
Okay.
And they have, of course, access to this lake on the other side of the road. You said it right up front too, Honda Linda is a busy private road. So
It is. I
it's
think that there's only one other rental on that road. It's very residential, very
Very
quiet.
very
So we'd like
quiet,
to
very
respect
private.
that.
I was surprised not to see any notes from neighbors either.
Yes.
Really
I
surprised.
confirm.
I recognize you.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. Yeah, that was your property to the north. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I had. Kristen, doesn't our policy say no parties or events?
Yes,
Pardon?
yes.
And your bylaws or whatever say just no events. So if you could add parties or / events,
Okay,
because that's what goes with our town.
okay.
You can, and from what I understand, your company manages that really well.
We definitely try to.
Yeah. Are you the owner of the house or are you?
No, I'll be James Cheney's property manager.
Oh. That was my question.
Okay, anybody else on the board? Just for the record, Finger Lakes Property submitted their use policy, their hot tub policy, their lease agreement, which I think all is in compliance with our regulations, and certainly if those rules and regulations are enforced, I think we'll be happy.
I have a question.
Sure.
So what happens if the property owner no longer engages with Finger Lakes Properties?
Oh,
I'm assuming you'll pass a resolution granting a special use permit if you do decide to grant it. That makes these things a condition of their permit, whether or not Finger Lakes is their property manager. They'll still have to have these same rules.
Yeah, the special use permits with the owner, not with
Right.
Finger Lakes Property, so.
So that's part of the special use permit. They're required to identify a property manager in a 24-hour a day contact within X number of miles, I think. And they've identified Finger Lakes. And you know that, obviously aware of Finger Lakes reputation in the area doing these types of short-term rentals. The reputation is not necessarily a requirement for the permit. You could have another company where something else that's not as, that doesn't have this reputation, so allowed to have that, which is why we close conditions of these rules.
Do we explicitly like state that anywhere? Like this is being issued to the property owner and no matter who manages. And maybe it's in a condition or a finding or in the permit itself, but like making it like in perpetuity
let's find
with the
Condition 1,
Top
provides
of
it
the
to the
list.
current owner, operator, and then I'm
Right.
just making some slight changes to condition 6. To say changes such as the number of rooms to be rented, rules, policies, or others required planning board approval.
The amendment?
That seems to cover it, right?
Okay, so in talking about these, in the special use permit, number 11 says 16.
Yes.
Yep, that's gonna be changed.
Yeah, I did. Take a look.
Got it?
Mr. Chairman, we did get a late neighbor letter that was in opposition. I have it over there.
Russ, I can't see it too well. Can you read it, Chris?
Oh, you want me to?
Dear Planning Board, I am writing to record my opposition against this application at 4075 Honolulu Drive. Has quite the reputation for its lack of privacy. Over the years, this problem has only been exacerbated by continual development and especially the relatively recent phenomenon of short-term rentals. The new town codes on STRs that rein in the excessive STRs are for the benefit of nearby residents. STRs create only burden for nearby residents who receive zero financial reimbursement from short-term rentals. Sincerely, Stephen Smulders, who resides at 4093 Honolulu Drive.
Well, hopefully our regulations will take care of what the Mr. Smolder's concerns are. That's why we wrote the regulations, and I think that's why we're going through this process tonight to make sure everything is done in accordance with those requirements. So I feel comfortable with what I've seen. Do you have a current permit right now for the property?
It was, the first permit was approved, but now, no,
Okay.
just waiting for tonight's approval.
And I know for the record, I should say that our code department did go out and do an inspection of the property.
Yes,
The property is in compliance with our regulations as outlined, and so it is in compliance and has been in compliance. And I don't see any reason why we would not issue a special use permit to condone or confirm the 12 occupants. I think it is on sewer and water, which is good, because it's sometimes a concern, especially with the sewer capacity. You do register your guests as part of your lease agreement,
yes,
so you know who's staying. Again, your rules and regulations are quite extensive, and can that be included as part of the statement of operations? Because that way, if there is another administration of the property, that everything is stated here tonight and
That's a good
is
point, Joe.
testified to be included, that would go with the property. I think that would work. How's that sound, board?
Yeah, I think their name is on it too, so. If it changed, it would have definitely a new program that would have to be sent in. For statement of operations.
And the last question I have is how long a period of time do we make this special use permit? And most special use permits, it is infinite, but in this case, I think we have been issuing 1 year if we have some concerns, or I think the permit is 3 years. I mean, the fee is for 3 years. No, 1 year? All right, how long do we want to make the term of the special use permit?
I think for my personal thought is that we keep it the way we've been doing it as a year. And that gives the residents time to look at it. And if there's problems for you guys to address, and then for them to come back and say yes or no, it's good or bad.
okay,
I know, it's like a trial period.
okay, that's
Fine with
fair.
that. Okay, so it'll be for a year. Anything else we have to include before we move on? Oh, yeah.
Were there rules outside of the rules contained in the statement of operation?
Yes.
We're gonna, okay.
I think you just incorporate the lease agreement and the policy as presented by Finger Lakes Property.
Yep.
Into the statement of operations. Okay, I'll go outside to anyone here or in the audience or out in digital land. Anyone want to speak regarding this application? You do have one?
I believe so.
Yeah, one
One year.
in-house.
Oh, okay.
I just had someone unmute themselves. So it's-
Okay, why don't we take you, ma'am? Liz, have a seat for a sec. Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, Kathy Foster, 4065 on Linda. They're the next door neighbor, no. My two concerns are that hopefully in your rental agreement or whatever, it's not just the people that rent it and stay there, but then they do have people that come visit and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and the parking is a real problem. I mean, it just is, and so it really needs to stay on their property, because we have such limited space as a, just our own property. And then secondly, I would ask that the noise ordinance is somehow worded in there, because before these people decided to rent, the next door neighbors were great neighbors, but they had a college age son who would have gatherings. And, you know, it was very, very loud on work nights and such, and it just, it can be a problem, and it wasn't a rental. So it can only be, could be worse with a rental. Those are my two concerns, okay?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
so it's been your experience that parking has been inadequate,
Grossly inadequate. Yeah,
and that's when it was a private residence.
uh-huh, there's not, I mean, it's a dead end road, I'm the
No,
dead end. And
I've
so
been there.
when people want to park, you know, they park all over, including all over our lawn, and it's been, you know, in the spring when it's wet, it's just trash.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'm not trying to be a cranky neighbor, but it's a pain in the butt.
Is that a result of this property or the properties, the group of properties at the end of the street?
No, this property,
The property, okay.
just,
But managed as a private residence.
yeah, it's just because there's really nowhere to go. You can't park in the turnaround, because it's the only place that, you know, Amazon or the fire trucks or anything like that can do a turnaround, or anybody that has a boat that wants to bring it with them, they go down our driveway trying to figure it out, and most of the time they're not very experienced, and they try to take out a few lampposts and things like that. It's really, it's tight.
How about, board, if we limit it to 6 parking, no more than 6 vehicles or 6 parking spaces, well, 6 vehicles. I think we've done that in other cases.
I have a couple of questions. Was there a limitation on guests in your lease agreements?
The occupancy is any time, so if we state that the occupancy is 12, it's 12 period, that would include visitors, there should be no more than 12 people on property at any time.
No, and that's different from what our code technically
Right, that's
states.
where Finger Lakes does it different.
So
But, so this will be more restrictive than our code.
yeah, and I would say make that a separate condition. If the, you know, if the applicant's good
No
with
more than
that,
6 vehicles.
6 vehicles and 12 total occupants of the property, including all guests at any given time.
Yeah.
Could be another condition that just makes enforcement a little easier rather than going to search for a lease and,
Yeah.
you know, when Mike Murphy's going through.
Yeah.
It's much
Not that
easier
I
to
care
get in
that
the
much about
condition.
his well-being or convenience, but. I
Okay.
like-
And
Thank you for
your,
that.
to your question about noise, there is, I read in their law bylaws, they very clearly say, talk about their noise levels and fines that would be given out to their guests. So,
Thank you. That's all.
and if you have complaints, you know where the new complaint area is in the cloud. There's a new complaint button in code compliance
It's
for
usually
that.
just 911.
Yeah.
No, so it's not in
Yeah.
this situation. This requires vigilance.
Yeah.
By the neighbors. If you're having problems, I don't know what the sheriff's department is gonna say. But I know that the town will follow up. So you
Yeah.
wanna report, you can report it to both. I'm not suggesting in any way, don't call the police, but make sure you also call the town, because if you call the sheriff's, the town's not gonna know about it. And if the town knows about it, then they can follow up and we.
Hopefully it's not necessary, just, you know.
I know, but in general, for short-term rentals, the town can impose fines, can pull the license. If you just call 911, the town won't even know about it.
And if we come back in a year for it,
Yeah,
but there's nothing on the record, then. there's nothing on the record.
Okay, did someone want to speak online?
I'm unsure.
Okay. All right, well, we're gonna move on. I think we're ready to close the hearing and move on with the resolutions. We're all in agreement? Okay, we have a special use permit. Well, first we have a secret resolution, which is type 2, applies to this property. So why don't we take care of that first? Someone want to give me a motion regarding the secret resolution?
I'll make that motion for seeker type 2 action on 24-135 4075 on the Linda Drive.
Okay,
I'll second it.
second, any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's move on to the special use permit. Make sure we have it worded correctly. Eric, do you want to tell us
What are the changes?
what,
that have been made
yeah,
today?
what conditions we changed on that? We dropped it to 12. We added 6, no more than 6 cars.
Yeah, so 6 was revised, as I mentioned previously. Number 11 was revised to say no more than 12. 12th condition was added that the lease agreement and policy presented by Fair Lakes for the property shall be incorporated in the statement of operations. And then 13, maximum parking in the site shall be no more than 6 vehicles. And, you know, in the resolution itself, it addresses all the criteria of 220-35B for special use permits. That you all.
And then
Oh. and-
1 year?
1 year.
Yes, 1 year, and that's noted in number 1.
That's number-
Okay. Think we have
Are
it
we gonna
covered?
do 1 year and date?
Good point.
Sorry.
wow, she was listening when we were done.
Hey,
You got a man that converted.
I'm awake. today, guys. Watch out.
Okay, Liz, your those conditions, are they acceptable? Okay. All right, so we have a resolution. Did I get a motion? I did.
I don't think
No,
so.
I-
I did the seeker, but I'll do the special use too. So I'll make a motion to approve the special use permit at 4075 on Melinda Drive. 24-135 with the updated conditions and additional conditions as we just discussed.
Okay, very good. Second,
I'll second.
we'll do it again, Bob.
Yeah,
Okay,
why not?
further discussion. If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thanks for coming out, Liz. Okay, thanks, Mrs. Foster. Okay, the next application is CPN 2024-139. Marks Engineering for a property in Middle Cheshire Road. We've been requested by the applicant to continue this application. So you have in your package a continuation resolution. I guess all we need to determine is to when. I think it was sort of less of the property owner that they would get back to us. So you want to push it out a month and then see what happens in a month if the applicant's ready to come before us? 1 month. 1 month,
1 month.
okay, so that would be the February,
That meeting,
whatever that meeting is. 11th,
February 25th.
okay, February 25th. All right, do I have a motion to continue discussion on that property of the 25th? So moved.
So moved, yeah, second.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next, we have CPN 2024-141. Anthony Venezia representing property at the 4925 County Route 16. It's a site plan approval for a tear down and rebuild of a single family home in the RLD. Good evening, Anthony.
Good evening. So we're in front of you today for a tear down rebuild in the RLD district. This project kind of started as a renovation. It was gonna be a pretty big renovation job. When we got further into the program of the new house design, it came to our attention that the first floor was about 1.5 feet too low to be abutted by the FEMA, 2 foot above the FEMA. So it led us to this plan in front of you tonight is a complete tear down rebuild of the existing structure. It's gonna stay in the same exact footprint. There's a couple things that we're gonna reduce some of the attached decks and some of the driveways to kind of reduce some lot coverage and help out some of the drainage issues. There are a few walls that border Westlake Road that are gonna be removed, kind of reconfigured to help get some of the vehicles a little bit out of the right of way a little bit more. You'll see that wall to the east of the road. We're gonna remove a wall and then raise up an existing boulder wall to try to hold that back and just get some of the traffic off the road there. But for the most part, we're just tearing it down and putting it right back in the existing form. So.
Andy, can you talk about the new drainage plan? Because right now, I see your drains going right to the lake.
Yeah, we didn't, at this point, we didn't put any stormwater management in there because of our footprint's so small of disturbance. So we could add it if the board would like it, some
I
sort of
personally like to
storage.
see
We can add it.
better
Yeah, we can add it.
infiltration before it gets to the lake.
We'll add something to the plan there where it's gonna exit the roof drains. So we can definitely do that.
I went down there, it's a beautiful house, actually. It's a nice looking house.
Yeah, the interior is the issue right now because it's the low ceilings and we couldn't do anything by raising up the first floor to kind of keep it. It was just, they're like 7 foot now, and by raising up a foot and a half, you have no headroom. So
Yeah. Same size, same height and everything.
it'd be a little bit higher, but it's still under the 25 feet average. Should be more of a usable space now with the current cottage is kind of like a split level on the first floor. And it'll flow a lot better and be a lot more usable for client.
Appreciate also the landscaping plan
Mhm.
that you showed.
Yep.
That was excellent. I went down there, there's not a lot of trees now and you're adding more with more shrubbery. That's good to see.
Yeah, we're trying to do, abide by the shoreline guidelines and really break up that
Yeah.
frontage. So
Good. It's all, hopefully all native.
it's all native. It is. No, nothing invasive. Everything's native. So
Feels too easy right now.
That was my only comment.
We might be setting a trend, not one variance requested.
On the lake.
On the way.
Yeah, I think that's a question came up, the landscape plan shows an infiltration area.
yeah, we
The
show,
site plan
yeah,
did not.
we have it planned. We kind of had a plan. We just haven't decided if it was gonna be a rain garden or just something underground, just the storage unit. So we're kind of playing around.
You know, I think the ECB had also requested some sort of
Very well.
control.
Yeah, we'll put
for the roof
some-
drains. Okay.
Yeah, one of your dry wells that you do with your French drain, those are good, work well there.
Those would seem to work better than a rain garden because then
You don't have to work.
no one messes with them.
Yeah.
So some people will just, after a while,
Yeah.
fill them in. So they definitely
Right,
work
yeah.
better. Catch basin's a little bit more easy to don't touch that kind of thing. But yeah, we can add something in that southeasterly corner.
You know if the roof is going to be asphalt or steel?
Asphalt.
Asphalt?
Same as what we've done.
Okay, all the more reason to have some sort of.
Yeah, a catch
Because
basin, yeah.
you're picking stuff off the roof and we don't want to put that right in the lake, so.
Yeah, we can do that.
There's one section of that roof with our design, may be metal. My wife is kind of against it, doesn't sound great, but we haven't decided yet. But the majority of it is asphalt,
What,
if not all.
what color facade?
Well, our neighbors just had it off the side and that was gonna be our color, so we're rethinking that right now.
It's gonna be more of a darker.
It's gonna be a
natural
dark color for sure.
It's not white.
Not white.
We like the color, we actually like the color it is right now, so we would love to keep it that color, but it's really similar to what the neighbors just did.
It's a nice color.
Yeah. roof tone.
As a reminder, board doesn't have purview over color.
No.
We sort of blended in with the shoreline guidelines.
Understood. That was,
And as Bob said, everybody commented how well the landscape plan was regarding.
I'll let Dan know.
does it look like it would need to see that?
No, it's dating accurate. It's really good with the hand draw stuff. It's nice. I don't know how. he does
Okay,
it.
so
It's
it's,
computers.
so Anthony, you're square with the code on the first floor elevation.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
right at that 2 feet above it. So, yeah, we're right where we need to be now. Or we will be. We're gonna try some of the foundation once we get in there, if we can, use that, like the west wall and. You know, we won't really know until we start getting into the demo if we can kind of. Modify or reuse some of that foundation, fill it in, or that's still to be determined by the architect.
And also to your credit, the building coverage is going down 2.2%. Lot coverage is going down 10%.
Yeah, there's some decks that are being removed and not putting back. Some of the walkways, they're just not being used at all. And then there's like a gravel pull off on the south that we just don't need. So we're kind of, removing that. We're gonna use it for a staging area for now. And then once that's done, we're just gonna pull it back because it's really never used.
And your off-street parking is, I assume, that area in front of the wall.
Yeah, it'll be in front of the wall, but then there's also another driveway that goes between the two walls. So there's parking, there'll be parking here. And then also the driveway comes through here, there's parking. So there's plenty of off-street parking.
You're gonna fix that big ditch that's in there now?
That dip,
Yeah.
we're gonna try to, we have to work with the,
Up at the bottom of our.
Yeah.
we'll have to work with the county
County.
because we have to get it's in the right of way, so we'll have to talk to them about that. We'll have to get them out there.
I know at PRC, the status of that force main that runs through the property was questioned.
We're working with Tyler regarding the septic now, so we're kind of going back and forth. We had a plan, when it was a renovation, it was the same, we weren't changing anything really. Other than now we're tearing it down, it was still that renovation where we were gonna use like a microbial inoculator to help with some of the increased space. And he was okay with that, so we're trying to figure out exactly what that's gonna look like. But now there's the force main, the septic is 3 properties to the south. It's in the
Yeah, it's flowing north.
yeah, this,
Yeah.
our residents and then also the residents in the north, they share one, so it's a little bit goofy of a system. It's a larger system. It's 3 houses down that kind of parallels kind of on 16.
And there's no easement?
There is an easement.
Oh.
I can get that to you. There is an easement. It's there. It's just not shown on this because the size of the scale.
Show that
It is
easement.
3 or 4, but I will provide that easement. There is mapping it, so we can have that.
So they use a force main to get to a shared septic.
Yeah. It was done a while ago.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
But they recently redid all the force mains within the last, I think it was the last 7 or 8 years. They upgraded them. One wasn't even working, so.
Okay, yeah, just, so, yeah, you've got Tyler on here as a condition.
Yeah.
And, I think the easement should be shown.
Yeah, I have a map, so I can provide that.
Are you pretty sure that's where it runs?
Zach, I was out there when they redid it and we
Yeah.
located it, so
okay.
that's a hard location, actually, when they were building it, so. That's about as accurate as it can get.
Sometimes chasing your tail, but okay, good. Anything else, board? Check my notes. The county just said if you work within the right of way of the road, you need permits from them. I don't think you're going to be.
We are gonna be doing some work just because of the driveway, there's a big dip in it, so. It's really right on the shoulder, so we kind of want to blend that back in. So there's gonna be a little filling there.
Okay, the ECB, again, complimented you on the landscaping. They also had a concern about the roof drains with the outfall, which we talked about regarding some sort of stormwater management system. So that takes care of that. County Planning Board declared this as exempt as far as their review. I think that pretty well covers mine. Any want to have anything to say in the public, either here or there, regarding this application before we move on? Yes. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. So it's a type 2 seeker. And we have a single stage site plan. And the only other thing is, in tearing down the property, if there's anything that's recoverable, you can offer to restore habitat. That's usually, and it's not a historic home, I assume.
How old is it?
I don't know what year it was built. I have no idea.
Okay, sometimes Leaf likes to take pictures if it's old, but I guess this case. All right, so we're ready to, let's take the seeker and the site plan together with one motion or two motions, but same person.
So as a bundle?
It is a
So
bundle.
I'll make that bundle plan on CPN 24-141 at 4925 County Road 16 for a seeker type 2 resolution and a site plan approval at said address with is there any more additional?
2 additional conditions. The library page of the force main easement shall be shown on the plans, and prior to signature, stormwater infiltration shall be provided. But wasn't sure what additional detail or standards you wanted to add to that.
So some stormwater, like what they were talking about,
For
dry well.
or at the end of that pipe, like at the end of the drain pipe.
Just add
Yeah.
stormwater management to the plans, really.
To the,
There's only one place we can go, and it's gonna be in the vicinity of that pipe. We have to extend it probably to get around the force mains, but.
On the north
we'll find
side?
a place to-
to
On the
the
southeast
lighting
side.
of,
On the south side?
Southeast.
There's one on the north side too, coming out of the, off
We're gonna
the
tile
shed.
the roof, leave it
Yeah,
all
okay.
together.
So yeah,
Those 2 additional conditions.
yeah.
You gotta put a date on number one, right?
We're gonna do that. Chris advised me that administrative changes like that, I don't necessarily need to address.
Good to have you back, Rich.
Please tell,
Trying to streamline the process.
please tell us.
I'll second that.
Okay, I got a motion, a second. Our planning board historian here, Kristen, said that that house is 1930.
1930, I just looked it up, yes.
Well,
Check for a historian, just give him a call or something, you know, where it goes down. He might want to come out and take it. Okay, all right. Okay, I got a motion, a second. For discussion, if not, all in favor?
I,
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Cheers.
Okay. We've moved up to CPN 2024-143 Marathon Engineering. Representing Jeff Cook for project Uptown Landing. We are in the preliminary overall subdivision stage of this project. Applicant is proposing 414 lot subdivision with mixed use development in accordance with the preliminary approved incentive zoning agreement with the town. And Matt, good evening.
Good evening.
Before you get on a roll.
Yeah, somebody tell us.
You're here tonight essentially for a sketch plan review. The applicant has submitted a full set of plans. For an overall phased subdivision. And you have submitted phase 1 as well, or will be, and will be submitting phase 1 in the near future. The reason, it's really a sketch plan review for tonight only. There's some administrative changes that the town board needs to make to the incentive zoning approval. You have seen this as an incentive zoning application and provided comments to the town board, who took those comments, incorporated some of those comments into their incentive zoning approval. Just some technical details that I believe the town board will grant the requested amendment to the incentive zoning. I think it complies with the intent of the incentive zoning that the town board granted. And it's not necessarily something you need to concern yourselves with now. I think the applicant wants to get some feedback, see where the planning board is on their overall application. That summarize sort of where we're at.
Yeah, I'm gonna cross my whole
So-
presentation off.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening.
And now, here's that.
So there's nothing that the town board is looking for from the planning board for their meeting on Monday night.
No, these are separate applications now, for separate processes now. And provided the town board moves forward at its next meeting and the meeting after that, then you'll be able to grant a preliminary approval, but in order to keep things moving forward simultaneously, we're doing simultaneous checks.
So we're still, even though the incentive zoning was adopted and applied to the property, the underlying district is form-based, well, part of it. is
Most of
form-based,
it is my
most of it,
understanding.
yeah. So we are proceeding with the procedures involved with form-based code, which is the sketch plan.
That's correct.
That's why we're here this evening. So, board members, I guess that's what we're looking at. We're handling this as a sketch. And the applicant is open to any suggestions, comments we may have. It is his prerogative to accept those comments and adapt them into the design or not. So why don't you go ahead and
Yeah,
tell us a
sure.
little bit about
I've got a
for everybody. I mean, I think there are other people
on.
online. I think this meeting was pretty well advertised, so there may be people that are not familiar with your project. So Matt, if you would do that.
Sure, absolutely. First, I'd like to introduce the folks here with me on the development side. I'm Matt Tomlinson with Marathon Engineering. We're the site civil engineers for the project and have been involved through the incentive zoning process as well. Jake Calabrese is with me from Marathon. I believe Steve Cullum's joining us, who's the project architect via Zoom. And then we've got Jeff Cook and Ian Denero on the ownership and development side here. And I don't think Dave's with us tonight. Okay, great. So I know this board has been here and I want to just update the board on the steps that we've been doing because we've been doing an awful lot of work to get ready for this and kind of proceeding with the project once we were successful with incentive zoning. So the steps that we've taken since we were here last before this board is obviously we went back to the town board, obtained our incentive zoning approval. We then made application for preliminary overall to this board back in November, just prior to Thanksgiving. And the project was referred out to everybody on the list. I think that was possible because of the size of the project and the complexity. We've appeared before the Agricultural Resources Board, I think it is, Environmental Conservation. We were referred to county. We've received some comments from town staff and been working closely with John, Sarah, Chris, Eric, et cetera, as we've moved this project forward on the detail and trying to make sure that we provide as complete a package as possible to this board. So the overall project, I'll just do a real brief overview for anyone that hasn't seen it yet, and then dive a little bit more into some of the details that we've provided for consideration. So we're located on approximately 100 acres. We're at Fire Hall Road and Parkside Drive, adjacent to Blue Heron Park. We're also adjacent primarily to large single-family agricultural on our north and eastern sides. And on the western side is where we order up to other portions of the form-based code, mixed use and Route 332 sub areas, as well as some multifamily primarily to the south of our property or along the southern border. As part of our incentive zoning approval process, the town board did a type 1 seeker coordinated review, which this board obviously was included in some of that review, and we did obtain a neg deck as part of our incentive zoning. It's my understanding that as we move forward on plan review with this board and with town staff, that you guys will be looking at it for a consistency purpose, but we're not doing a separate secret review. I'm sure Chris can correct me if I got that wrong. So to a certain extent, a lot of the big pieces on this project have been done. But what we're really looking forward to working with this board on is obviously moving forward through the site plan subdivision approval process. And I think what we're proposing, because of the intent and the time that was taken for the incentive zoning, we really don't have a lot of zoning issues to work through either, because obviously that incentive zoning approval or resolution modification to the zoning was tailored to exactly what we're trying to create and have submitted for you guys here. So for the overall plan, we have currently shown on the submitted preliminary overall package 222 single family homes, 88 townhomes, 224 apartments, and 105 units within the mixed use building with approximately 5,000 square feet of commercial space. And I'll come back to those numbers a little bit later as it relates to the incentive zoning and how those numbers correspond with what was approved as part of the IZ for the number of units. for amenities, with incentives come amenities, right? So this board weighed in on several of those. The amenities are largely focused on the park, which is to our south and west, plan lower left on the page. And those include, a restroom building, dollars contributed towards, a playground, paving of the trails, the Stone Dust trails within the park, which are pretty substantial and provide nice walking areas. And then sidewalk, and there was some discussion with this board, if you'll remember when we were here a few months ago, the sidewalk along the road frontage, being within the bounds of our property are not counted as incentives because that's a typical requirement for site plan or subdivision approval. So the stretches along Parkside Drive and Fire Hall Road, which are along our property frontage, are included in the project, but are not part of the incentive package. The sidewalk that is included in the incentive package is a sidewalk along the entirety of the park frontage and then along Parkside Drive to the signalized intersection at Route 332 along there. And then one of the items that this board actually asked for that was not included, the original iteration with the town board package, was sidewalk to be included along the school district property, which fronts along Parkside Drive in order to make that connection from our road frontage out to Route 332. So that was subsequently added, and we're currently working with town staff and through town staff with the school district to obtain some easements along that frontage, try to maintain some vegetation for the sidewalk routing. In addition to some of the amenities that I just mentioned, the project still is required to participate in paying the Parks and Rec fees, for example, for each unit that comes in. So this board had recommended a couple of additional things in their report back to the town board that ultimately were not selected as incentives, but there are dollars from the project going into a fund that could be utilized for those. That included potential for solar or electric car charging stations within the park, wastewater reclamation, which was not something that was pursued, and again, sidewalk in front of the school district, which was adopted. So some of the items that were recommended were included and some not. Internal to the site itself, one of this board's recommendations was creating some more green space or open space within the single family home area. And we've been able to accommodate that to a certain extent within this development. The original single family portion of the subdivision was 230 units was approved as part of the incentive zoning. We've reduced that to 222. One of those is taken up by the stub road to the north to allow for potential future expansion. That was something that was also discussed with the board when we were here before. But those other 7 really have been utilized to expand lots in tight corners, create larger backyards, create some buffering to the spine road at the rear. If you'll notice on Road C, which is roughly in the middle of the plan, we've created some green space for some of those backyards to separate that back off of the roadway. And really just create, I think this board felt that there was some tightness in that single family layout. The other piece that we've been able to incorporate is some of the open space. Originally, we had shown as stormwater management facilities within all 3 of them. One of the larger open spaces that's encircled by Road B on the plan set does not need to have a pond in it. So that'll be just meadow, if you will, or mowed a couple of times a year type thing. What we were not able to do is to push large areas of open space further north and west in the site. That's driven by a couple things. Number one, it's uphill and we couldn't utilize some of that area for stormwater purposes. And so that was a challenge in order to try to create open space, but preserve some of the density that's necessary from that. And so in lieu of that, again, we've tried to make those lots spaced out a little bit and take up or provide a little more green space within the properties. Secondly, there is no HOA. Ryan Homes is going to be the single family home builder through here. They will have an HOA for the townhomes, but they've indicated to us that an HOA for the single family to maintain portions of open space is not something that they're interested in pursuing. So we've kind of tried to strike a balance with what the desires or what we heard from the board when we were here previously, with what we can provide for open space and how do we maintain it. So all of the open space that we're showing on here will be kept under ownership. There'll be a separate parcel, and the operation and maintenance of those will fall under the same as the townhomes, and they're essentially linked geographically or in close proximity to those from a management standpoint. So we think that we've been able to accomplish a significant amount of what the board was looking for through the efforts that we've taken there. For the apartments and the mixed use, the first phase of that, and in a second, I'm going to switch to a phasing map, but the first phase of that will be along Fire Hall Road. And we've been coordinating with the utility owners through this whole process: sewer, water, gas and electric, et cetera. Sanitary sewer, there's a lift station or a pump station right on Fire Hall Road, just south of Airline, which is where our sewer's coming from. That's where we've got to start the project, and we think it really works well. The site generally drains from west to east, so that works from a stormwater standpoint. We're going to build all of our stormwater management facilities early on in the phase to do most of that mass earthwork as well. Complete streets. I know that's something that is very important to the town, supported to the developer. You'll notice on Road A, there are no driveways. There are only roadway intersections on Road A. That was very intentional on our part to create a complete street with limited cuts to it. There will be bike lanes on both sides, consistent with the town's detail for the complete street for the subdivision version. That'll have sidewalk on both sides of that street as well. We've tried to create some offset crosswalks with some differentiation in material, whether that's stamped asphalt or asphalt inlays there. There are substantial tree plantings, lighting along the entirety of that spine road as well. That lighting will be consistent with the work with Mr. Fletcher to get the cut sheets for the light poles that are going in on Route 332 currently. These lights will be the same light poles with a roadway fixture and a pedestrian fixture similar to, or the same light fixture as out there from a consistency and a visual standpoint. Other lighting and for the rest of the roads, part of that balance for the incentives and some of the amenities that were offered was our working with the town, and I think we discussed this when we were with you last. All of the other roadways will be dedicated. They will not have bike lanes. They'll have sidewalks on one side of the street. We're going to provide lighting at the intersections, not along all of the thoroughfares or streets. A couple other miscellaneous items that we have taken into consideration and are incorporating. Trail connections. So sidewalks along our streets are great. Where are they going? We want all of our residents to also interact with the park, bring some life, creativity, use to that park. And so we've provided two trail connections, one that connects along the pipeline, which connects roads I have to squint a little bit, I'm sorry, I and H along the south side. Want me to point?
Yeah, please.
Absolutely. So there's a Buckeye pipeline that runs through, which is why if you look at an aerial, there's no buildings along a pretty long straight line within the town through this area. So we are proposing a trail that will connect the sidewalks on all three of those roadways straight through and into the park. And then we also have another trail connection through and connecting to the loop, as well as obviously the sidewalk connections along the road frontage. So we're really trying to create and promote some of that trail and pedestrian connectivity through the development. All of the single family homes are within roughly 1,500 feet of an open space. That doesn't mean necessarily the park, but some of the open spaces within the project proper.
Is that in that trail? What is the finish on that trail?
It would be asphalt
It would be
paved,
asphalt.
matching the park trails that we will be paving. That's correct. Thanks for the question. Next steps before I turn it over for what I'm sure will be many questions. As Mr. Nadler mentioned, we've got a procedural town board appearance on the 31st in anticipation of that modification on the 24th. And that pertains just to some language that we did not modify in the incentive zoning as it relates to the underlying code. The form-based code, if you guys have looked at it, shows this entire parcels in the mixed-use sub-area. The underlying code and the official zoning map doesn't quite match, so we're just rectifying that. It's kind of a procedural thing. In our plan, being marathons, we are submitting on February 3rd for final section 1. So we've received comments from staff, and our goal and why we wanted to continue our schedule of meetings here with you folks, both now, hopefully again in February 11th, and then potentially 25th, which would be the earliest that I believe the town would be able to consider a preliminary overall approval, is to get your feedback, because we want to incorporate those as we continue to update our plans. And obviously, if there are requests for large shifts or large pieces that the board wants to us to consider, we want to hear those from you before we get to the point of submitting for final. A quick phasing, if we could go just to that next diagram. Yeah, right there. So this identifies our proposed phasing for the project. We are anticipating 5 phases now, and a lot of that's going to be driven by demand, of course. The first phase would be outlined in red. Yeah, Jake will point for us, great. Outlined in red. We anticipate that the second phase will be a combination of the green and yellow, because we will need a second means of ingress to the project for fire code purposes. And we need to break up the spine road in some chunks that make sense from a financial standpoint. That's a road that we're building with utilities and infrastructure along it, but no houses along it. So we really need to be able to phase that in a way that makes sense from a construction and a dollar standpoint as we look at the density that we include in each section. So our final section 1 submission is going to include everything that's outlined in red there. Again, no changes from what you're seeing in your preliminary overall plan, but just further detail as is required by the final checklist and the town's requirements for review. And then last phase, depending on absorption, would be the lilac and purple colors. We were starting to run out of options on the PDF for differentiating. And part of that, again, will be driven by the demand of the single family. Those may need to be phased sooner rather than later, depending on how large that demand
Roughly
is.
how many is in those last 2 phases? How many residential houses?
I believe in the northeast quadrant, there's about 70 roughly, and about 55 in the lower right-hand quadrant there. So a little more than half of the total is in those last 2 phases.
So at some point, can you spell that out either in a note to the plan or a letter? Phase 1 has this many
Absolutely.
apartments, this much commercial, this many single family.
What's the current anticipated timeline?
So part of the reason for our preparing and submitting our final section 1 plans here coming up is so that we can hit the March meetings for contemplation of
I'm sorry.
Construction wise?
Overall build out.
We would love to start construction April 15th, as soon as the weather breaks. Obviously, we have a lot of things to get done on our side, outside of our meetings with you folks and our approvals. So we'd love to start construction this summer, which would allow for beginning of house construction late this fall, as well as apartments, which I think is first over mixed use, but we're still working on that phasing. That would allow us to build the community building for the apartments and some of the apartments. So first phase, I would anticipate late spring of 26 would probably be the absolute earliest for C of O. And phasing is going to depend on absorption, but we're probably thinking about a 10-year build out somewhere in that neighborhood in total. Hopefully sooner, 8 to 10 years for full build out somewhere in that neighborhood.
What's the anticipated build out less purple? Essentially, what's the anticipated completion of road A?
Of road A.
The spine road.
Yeah, I would anticipate that that's 5 years or less. There's townhomes, the second phase of the apartments, and the additional single family. And if green and yellow become a 2A, 2B, or a section 2 in completeness, a short section of that road A that was needed to be completed could definitely be considered to be included. We're just not sure yet how quickly those phases are going to follow.
But you're building from your road frontages in,
Correct.
so anything unbuilt will be behind what's already constructed.
That's correct. Yep. Yep, and we have considered in part of our discussion that I'm sure the code enforcement officer, et cetera, are going to, and fire marshal. We also have considered or contemplated temporary leaving out of a couple lots for a secondary connection here that would be gated for emergency vehicles to allow two means of egress or ingress if we need to get to that point, if this is falling behind from a schedule standpoint between townhomes and additional single family. So I think this plan gives us a lot of flexibility in making sure that we can provide emergency services to the development as a whole, no matter which way the phasing goes. So with that, that's the overview. Again, we're looking for this board's feedback. We hope that you say we love it and don't change a thing, but we've been before the board before, and I'm sure there's things that we have not contemplated or captured in full from our original discussion. So we'd love to hear from you guys.
Chris, again, procedurally, this is a preliminary subdivision, overall subdivision.
Yes.
Do we also have a companion site plan review, or if and when that occurs?
I think that would be companion to phase one subdivision, final phase one subdivision. And because it's apartment complex, apartment buildings, you'll submit site plans for the apartment buildings along with that.
Each of the apartment buildings is going to be on its own parcel as part of this. So it's really a subdivision application with site plan review wrapped into it.
Okay.
And that's how we've structured our preliminary overall plans as well.
I just know in the incentive zoning agreement, it talks about it going to a planning board for a site plan approval. I don't think something to that effect.
In the agreement,
I think it was in the, yeah,
I think that
I just saw a reference to as part of the,
From a checklist and a procedural standpoint, subdivision and site plan are the same checklist application forms within
I
cloud
can,
permit.
yeah, I
So
can see that, yeah.
I-
I just didn't want to see, make sure we didn't have a subdivision review and then a site plan review. If we could combine it,
that's,
it would certainly makes sense. And then take it to final.
Yeah.
Based on your section number.
And I think one sheet of your application, one sheet of the plan should be a site plan. And it should be labeled site plan so people can say this is where it's going.
yeah,
Sometimes it's confusing for people looking at a subdivision because it's different. It's a lot, I think. But so I think it's a good.
yeah. So in our complete plan set, which we submitted to you folks, we have the subdivision plats, obviously, but we've got site plans, grading, landscaping, all of the components of that site plan requirement.
All 37 sheets.
There's a few pages, yes. Final section one will be shorter, but not by much.
Put a strain on my computer to open it up. So I really never got to all the way to the back into the detail sheets. The right of way and cartway widths of the complete streets. Is that on your detail sheets in the later part of the package? Again, I couldn't get there to
It is, yeah.
see it. So you have a typical section.
All the roadways will be dedicated, they're town of Canandaigua sections, road sections, details for all the roadways.
Do you know offhand what the right of way was proposed for road A, for the complete streets road, the spine road?
For the physical features of it or the right of
Just
way?
the width, the 20, what is it, 60
um,
feet, 80 feet?
I think it's 80 feet, but I'm not.
Is that, do we have a
You have a
detail
section, you have a
for
detail,
So it meets our standard. Okay.
correct. Meets
it's a
your
detail
standard.
for a complete
Copy
street?
and
paste,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah.
I saw it in there somewhere.
And the right of way, again, since the other roads are gonna be dedicated for the side roads, the non-spine road, that's.
Those are all
60.
60, yeah, standard, yep.
Board, I'm open to comments.
My turn. Three simple things, though I have two a statement. I appreciate you listening to us and adding the green space. That was one of my comments last time. And I see over near Road A, as you're accessing that, there's one additional green space that wasn't there last time. And also the pond areas, I understand you're now gonna be green space. Because it shows ponds in your pictures later on in the
Yes, so,
slideshows.
if I can clarify here. These two open spaces are both stormwater management facilities.
So there'll be ponds,
This does not have a pond.
right?
That's
Okay.
open space. open
That's new.
space. And then there's additional stormwater management facilities.
Are those ponds or dry ponds? Sure.
They will have, their retention ponds will have water in them.
Okay, I got the fountain.
So,
That's a TBD at this point.
Ducks, swans. Geese for sure.
on just on your sheet one, it just says open space, and I mean, if I looked at it, I'd want to see that that's gonna be a pond.
Mhm.
Because that's what I'm looking at for, if I'm living over here, for open space, and I appreciate the fact that you did lose some houses there on Road A to give that open space, and that you said that you're gonna have a maintenance agreement with all that too, that's great. One bad thing that happened when you rearranged, it took away one of the access points to the park from a connection between C and B Road. There used to be a connection there to the park. So anybody in B and C, A has to go all the way to A to get that one, or all the way back around to the pipeline. It just seems so much, smarter thought process to somewhere near C, B intersection to put something through there. To connect to the park.
Like where, essentially where that orange line, orange and yellow. line
Yeah,
is.
yeah, right,
Yeah, it's
Pretty much
in
that.
trail or lot 7 and 8 roughly, but
right.
I'll
That's-
take,
I'll
we
let
could
go of
take,
that concern.
That
we
was
take a
issue,
look at that.
that was there in the first one. You mentioned lights. At the intersections, would you put one at the possible new access point to the north there? Would that be a light thought?
That's a good question. I don't think we
Okay.
thought about that.
All right,
I think we'd push that to the developer of the north parcel if and when they come in,
Okay.
but we can have that discussion.
well, I would think that would be fair because not gonna use that for that access. We had a project come through here about a year ago with a pipeline through it. And there was a 50-foot easement that you couldn't build on that or near that. How does that affect with your pavement? Because you can build on the pipeline easement?
Yep, so pavement sidewalks can be installed across it. They have very specific rules about how much fill, cut, that kind of thing.
Yep.
We've had initial discussions with the Buckeye Pipeline rep already. And we're going to coordinate some test pits to find out how much cover so that we can nail down those details. When we told him that was our second or third section, he said, "Oh, okay, call me when you're ready." So it sounds like because we're not encroaching with any structures, meaning houses, anything like that. And he sent us a copy of his regulations for us to consider. We don't anticipate any issues with
I
that.
believe they have to approve it, right?
That's correct.
We have to have that.
Yeah.
Department, okay.
Yeah.
Copy that. And then thirdly, a landscape plan. That'd be the only thing I'd ask for.
So we submitted landscape drawings in your package.
Oh my God,
So
I missed
if for some reason you didn't get them, that's
No, they're in there, lighting and landscape plans.
Yeah,
They're after some details, some cut sheets. or some-
after the profiles.
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct. So we did try to represent what we're trying to create from a streetscape standpoint, because again, I know that's very important to this board and kind of following the intent of the complete streets. When we went and met with the Environmental Conservation Board, we reviewed this with them and they encouraged us to maybe expand some of our tree species selections outside of the list that's in the form-based code. And I know they we're eager to take another look at it when we came back in with final section 1, where we'll have some plant material selection detail and that kind of thing versus just the generic selection list. But yeah, I do think that info is there, so.
That's it for me. Appreciate what you've done already and listening to us on that.
Folks, anybody else?
No, it's just echoing what Bob said in the appreciation. Answered a lot of our questions, so thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
So I echo Bob on the connection, internal connection, as many internal connections you could make to that park, I think would be better. Because it's a long way from those residential houses over to that park, and I think, you know, the more foot traffic you can keep off of Fire Hall or, the other roads, the better. The only other question I had, probably for our planners, is that is there sufficient parking currently at the park for a full build out of something this size, or is the town looking at having to expand?
I'm not privy to some of those conversations about the usage of the park facility. When we did the 2018 master plan many years ago now, it wasn't an issue. I don't think that would have been preceding the Uptown plan, so it wasn't really thought of as that this massive development right here. So I'm not exactly sure, but to your point about creating additional connections, if you can make it more walkable to get there, you're less likely to see the demand from residents to drive the few hundred feet over.
Well, I'd like the bike trails, so people would be encouraged to use their bikes to make that trip over to the park.
Matt, can you comment, you know, as a rough estimate as an engineer, the town could add some parking there, I'm assuming it's a gravel parking.
Yeah, absolutely, and
Flat,
yeah, it is, it's not, there's no significant grade concerns from that standpoint, and again, I think. This will be a phased construction, so I think there'll be an opportunity for the town to observe over time as units are brought in, and again, each unit that comes in is gonna contribute to the Parks and Rec Fund, and there'll be a significant amount of dollars based on the number of units that comes in available for improvements if the demand is there from future residents of the town.
phasing and maintenance questions. That's appropriate. Well, in terms of phasing, I think these are big bites, and I'm assuming at some point we do, you know, phase 1A, B, C, and D, or not, but my concern is getting the spine road completed. You've got a big chunk of it as part of your last phases. You know, one thing I'd like to see is the phases broken down by numbers, but also by letters of credit / surety bond. And I think the final phase 1 is going to require a bond for all of Road A. Because it's fundamental to this, and obviously you don't need to put dollar amounts in at this point, but I think that you know, if the worst happens, and this is what the planning board's supposed to do, is factor in what happens if, you know, everybody gets hit by a bus and phase 5 never gets built. Well, you've got 2 roads that dead end.
Right.
Stand one.
And so you wanna account for them, what's gonna happen at what, or quite frankly, you know, I think we know these developers and trust them to do a good job, but if they sell it off to somebody else who says, well, it's a pretty expensive road, I'm not gonna do it, I can just make a little cut through here. And so, you know, one of the things we're gonna wanna know is, at what point does the town say, all right, you promised us a big spine road, a complete street, we're gonna do it for you and charge you letter of credit. That's one of the issues, and I think what the board would find useful is you proposing that in those deadlines, for lack of a better purpose. And then maintenance of the open spaces and the stormwater, and the trail. It sounded like you said that HOA is gonna manage the stormwater for the whole project?
There will be a management company associated with the apartment and mixed use buildings, so it will not be
And
an
mixed
HOA.
use.
It'll be, those will be retained under ownership by the developers, and they're maintenance agreement, maintenance contract, whatever you will, is gonna be responsible for those open spaces as part of ownership, because ownership will remain in the same entity as the apartments.
So all 4 of these lots,
Yep, there's 5, but yes, correct. Yep,
will be responsible for this, and this.
that's correct. Yep.
That's
And
the-
the open space that won't have a pond in it. Correct.
This one will be HOA, I'm assuming?
We have not decided that. The cleanest may be to have it stay in with everything else, but that hasn't been determined yet. Chris.
Okay,
I feel like I could know, but I-
we're gonna have to flesh those details
I was
out.
thinking of the one-
The town obviously wants somebody to hold accountable.
Yep.
Um,
And yeah, there'll be the normal stormwater maintenance agreements that are filed and everything else.
okay.
I just had 2 more things,
Cool.
Matt, sorry. Mailboxes at the house or centrally located.
Mailboxes at the house or on the townhouse, at the
Okay,
townhouses.
good. So you don't have to pull off. Appreciate the traffic study. It's quite in-depth study there. Good that you did that already. Proved that wasn't very big of an impact.
Yep, that was part of the seeker review, so we had to get that out of the
Yeah.
way early on.
It was good. Public bus stops. For public transportation, anything like that on there?
We do not have any, and I apologize that I don't know off the top of my head as to whether or not this is within the on-demand zone for RTS or not.
No, I don't remember.
Unique destination.
It's true.
So I'm not aware of any plans for that. Typically, they revisit their stops every so often and you know, where riders come from, that's where they,
Right,
that's where
yeah.
they relocate their stops. I believe there's one, maybe
Parkside, I
at Parkside and County Road 28 further
One
south
there at the veterans apartments, one there at Valley Station.
Yeah, Charlie Station's at County Road 28 there.
And I was looking at, oh, I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
I was looking at some of the referrals that we did as part of this application. Obviously, went to our code department. I know you're working with them regarding any changes, recent changes in the building code. That's not something that's specific to the site plan and the subdivision, but it's certainly something that you're gonna have to deal with prior to building permits. You've been working with Jim Fletcher and the highway and making sure that the streets meet his requirements, because he's the one that's got to maintain them and moving forward. I know Farmington Water just recently submitted a review the 23rd.
Yep.
And I guess you have to deal with those issues. You mentioned sanitary sewer, you're okay with the county. Did you do your capacity analysis? And that, I think you did a capacity analysis, if there's adequate capacity in the interceptors and the pump station.
Yeah, so we met with the county. They're actually excited that we're building this because right now that pump station was built to handle a lot more flow, anticipating development than currently goes to it. So this development's really gonna help that pump station
Get some of the money back.
function better than it does currently. So we're working with Tim and Jack over at the county DPW to on those reviews currently.
And really, with NIDOT, Department of Transportation, highway, something about 332 pedestrian connection.
When we make the connection, we'll have to get a permit for the sidewalk work that ends up in
That's-
the right of way. Yep, so it's a pretty small section, but it is in the 332 right of way.
Okay, county planning board, you were at that meeting? I believe?
We talked to Linda actually in advance. They left it as I think a type 1 or but they had
Yeah,
seen
they-
it as part of the incentive zoning and given their recommendations then, so they really didn't have much new to add.
They had mentioned, and I think the ag committee also mentioned a buffer to the ag land. Is a possibility. I'm not sure exactly along which.
I believe they're talking about
Probably the north side.
to the north property, and there is a decent buffer on the adjacent parcel between that field and the property line. And of course, the single family homeowners will be able to plant, put up fences, whatever they want to supplement their property with.
The ECB had mentioned the possibility of a dog park,
Yes,
and I know you responded at the meeting, I guess, the possibility of canines at the apartments, I guess, more than anything else. And is it something you've thought about since the meeting, or?
it's not an amenity that we're proposing to install for the single family or from strictly mostly from a maintenance or who's gonna run it without an HOA standpoint. The apartments, I think that's an amenity that we're looking into potentially providing. But again, that hasn't been decided yet, but that
How many units of apartments are you putting in?
224, I believe is the number. You guys sound right? Yeah. In total, there's about 28 per building. Yeah, not counting the mixed use buildings, sorry.
The ECB also brought up possibility of encouraging solar use. I guess whether it be part of the homes or the other buildings, the more commercial buildings. I don't know if it's something we looked at or.
Systems haven't really been selected yet for those units, but we'll explore potential
Are
for
there
that on the.
energy credits available if you provide any type of alternate energy?
I'm sure there are. I know for the apartment buildings being only 28 units, they don't really have the roof size to allow for a real large proponent. They're also angled roofs, not flat roofs. So from an aesthetic standpoint, I'm not sure that's where we want to go, but that mixed use building may have some more opportunity to it just because it's a larger building.
Okay, I just want to make sure we think about it anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe in your designs too. And I guess the ECB also, mentioned planning and lighting, make sure it's dark sky compliant. I guess you're waiting for a review from MRB.
Yeah, our apologies on the delay in getting that to you. We have a lot of comments. Not many that the planning board really needs to get to tonight, I don't think, but we're gonna be requesting more information as it relates to drainage, so we can appropriately review that. But a few that might be of interest to the planning board, you've already touched on the one that we were gonna suggest as far as the connection here. But the planning board might also consider this block being substantially larger than the towns in front of it. It's like 1,200 feet or something like that, in the subdivision standards. So creating more walkability, and the uptown plan says like 600-foot block maximum, I think is what it is. That one's substantially larger than that. And then depending on what this ends up being, if it's, you have a pocket park here called out, it's called out as open space. If you're a lot here, you've got to walk. Does it make sense that one you sort of, go right there instead of walking further? Thinking about from the planning board's perspective, any other pedestrian permeability throughout the different blocks to make it more walkable, reducing those distances. And not necessarily creating streets, but whether it's just a 15-foot wide pedestrian interconnection or something like that. So, leave that up to you all.
Okay, so we're looking forward to that review. And the Ag Committee, they said there's no risk to active farmland because I guess it hasn't been farmed in many years, so. And related to the existing property, there are no NRI features on the property.
As amazing as that is.
That
that's
makes
good.
things a little bit. No floodplains, no steep slopes,
Can I bring up one other thing?
no woods. I guess you.
The town code generally permits through lots or double frontage lots. We have just a few of them there. Again, just for your consideration about whether, this one. Part of that, so whether you want fences on that prominent roadway. Just something for you to consider.
That's what I was thinking about
double frontage
landscaping,
lots.
how that would be
Landscaping.
landscaped, and I'm still looking for it, but that's what I would
But
think.
again, it relates to maintenance and.
Yeah.
We're proposing quite a few trees along that Route 8 for the complete street, so that would assist in kind of giving that buffer. Yes.
Is that showing on your
Can
existing?
we
landscape
pull
plan?
down to the landscape plan, just one of the bottom sheets there, maybe we could just take a quick look at that together.
It doesn't
Up
cra-
one,
doesn't crash.
yep, right there, yeah, so we're showing the street tree rhythm there. I think that if there's a desire for us to add some additional, maybe a second layer of trees or something of that nature, we definitely could consider that if it's a concern of the board. We could potentially also put some type of an easement through there that restricts sheds and fences or something of that nature, but the through lot, you know, creating a skinny piece of property there to prevent the through lot, I don't think avoids too much the intent. And in this instance, it would be orphaned. On the other side, we have it connected to kind of a larger open space that could be maintained by the HOA or the mixed use property by wrapping around. This one would be create kind of a orphaned parcel, so that's why we left it off.
I believe the through lot restriction is waivable by the planning. Board. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's the appropriate buffer.
And are you ultimately proposing like easements along some of the stormwater infrastructure that's in the
Yes.
back there? Okay, so even though it's not shown on the plans that.
So, again, this is not, you don't need this for the next meeting, but before we get into the issuing approvals, what I'd like to see is an overall general location of easements, stormwater easements, that kind of thing, like with colors, because 10 years from now, there's gonna be a crew of town staff consultants who are gonna be trying to figure it out. And just something that can be referred back, oh yeah, this is the drainage easement, this. That kind of thing.
Yeah, our final section one plans will have utility easements on the plats for consideration. We can work with
But I
you
mean,
on
like a cheat sheet,
overall
1 and 2.
graphics. Yeah, that's no problem.
What about sheds and that kind of thing? Are these people gonna want sheds? And is that okay on these small lots? And is that gonna be? I guess I don't remember whether it's like rear setbacks are. in this.
So side setbacks are 5 feet. And I believe that's both for incentive, principal as well as accessory structures. Don't believe that there are any restrictions as it relates to having the sheds and rear setbacks for the single families. I think we kept the same as the original, which was 40 feet, but I'll have to find that here in just a minute.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Do you have 40 feet in these
I'm
backyards?
sorry, the rear is 20 feet, 20-foot setbacks in the rear yards.
That makes-
Typical lot is approximately 120 feet deep, so there is room for sheds in the rear.
It's all in general, minimum lot size.
Okay.
Actually, most of it's larger in either width or like.
And I think you'd mentioned that the amenities you're providing will be part of phase one, all of them.
I believe the condition as it's written is that all amenities must be installed prior to the first C of O.
Yep.
One of the only, I'll call it undefined, is there's a dollar amount, I believe, associated with the playground specifically, versus installation. So that one may not be installed, but obviously the contribution would have to be made to the town, in lieu of installation.
Let's go out. We have a lot of folks online and here. Anyone want to address the board regarding this application? Any questions you may have, please address it to us and or any comments. And sir, I'll take you if you come up and give us your name and address. No, sure. Voting is yours.
Yeah, my name's Jim Hecker. I live over at Emerson Road, and just because of got a little bit of history with this area up there. The Buckeye pipeline that they referred to, just to make sure the board understands, that's a liquid petroleum, could be gasoline, could be aviation fuel, running pretty close to 800 pounds of pressure. So, and it's just, that's just an information. The property to the north has 3 other pipelines on it. One of them is a 24-inch line, and that runs close to 2,000 pounds pressure. That's the property to the north.
Yep.
So but there's 3 pipelines on that, all high pressure. I just want to make sure you know what we're building houses in and around. And I'm not downplaying the fact that pipelines are the safest way to transport that type of product. So I'm not downplaying that. I just want the board to be aware of it and MRB because you rely on them to do all your reviews.
Mr. Hecker, by the way, you're Jim Fletcher's predecessor, is that it?
Yeah, yeah.
Just for the board's.
The next thing, Blue Heron Park. Blue Heron Park, the ponds were built as a stormwater management facility. Prior to Route 332 being widened out to 4 lanes. Blue Heron Park takes in all the drainage on 332 coming from right about by the American Legion. It's actually just a little bit south of the American Legion, but only by maybe 100 feet, out by Mid Lakes Drive. That all comes to the north. The reason that was built is because you know where the office buildings are on the south side of Parkside Drive. Those stormwater management ponds were built because the parking lots in those office buildings flooded and the county had offices in there and several county employees had flood damage to their cars. This was during the day. All of this water flows north towards Emerson Road. And it goes through stormwater management is doing its job as things go today. When you add everything in, just make sure everything is reviewed so the water going in is regulated so it doesn't increase the flow out. The drainage swale going to the north as recent as December of 2024 had a beaver dam that Jim Fletcher's crew had to go out and clean out. That beaver dam raised the level of the water in that drainage ditch by about 2 feet in about 2 days. So they get in there and they do their job, and beavers are one of the wonders of nature.
The highway department is now keeping the beaver as a pet.
Should we start naming beavers?
But anyways, that water continues across Emerson Road, goes down through the gun club property. Was down through behind my house. And then it actually sometimes causes problems, causes potential problems where it crosses under Risser Road. So this drainage area needs a lot of study by MRB group and needs special care. It's very delicate now. It needs to make sure there's extra attention paid to that. And then the last thing I've got, I heard you talking about putting parking there at Blue Heron Park. Blue Heron Park was never meant to be a great big park with a lot of, doesn't have a lot of room for parking. It was meant to be a stormwater management area with a little bit of passive recreation and that walking trail around there. So thank you for listening and please take it into consideration.
Thanks for your comments.
Thank you.
Sir, how did that area fare with the heavy rains we had? Last year?
The bridge behind my house almost washed out. How's that?
Almost.
And that's a bridge that's for access. Well, it's for hunting access in my property, but I maintain that. I go down and I clean any of the dead ash trees that fall into the stream and I clean them out usually every year. Getting a little old, might have to get a piece of equipment in there to take them out,
But you are correct. We don't want to make it any worse than, I think that's,
Right.
we want to make sure we control it, so.
And the ash trees that have died along that stream bed, all the way from Emerson Road, all the way to Risser Road and beyond, there's a lot of them causing a lot of problems, so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else here? Yes, sir. Amy, got anybody out there? Raise your hand.
Hi, Peter McKellar. I live at 5205 Emerson Road.
Sure.
I'm on the backside of the property there. A couple things is the density of the development. I mean, we're in a rural town, right? But this is city stuff. This is like putting a lot of houses in a small area. The height wise, I think some of the buildings were 4 stories, 5 stories. You know, to put that in town, you've got 332, which has got the car dealerships and all of that, and you wanna put this stuff behind it to raise it up. You know, I mean, cost of the, how much are they gonna cost for the apartments, you know, the rent and that type of stuff, is it affordable housing, is it, you know? How much are we gonna get for people coming in here, this type of stuff, I know that there's a huge need for housing, I know this is gonna be developed. This is kind of crazy for being a town of Canandaigua, we're putting this huge development in the center of it. The park size, like you were saying, the park, that's a small park. You're putting in, what, 3,000 people coming to use this? You're not increasing the size of the park. There's no place to put more park because they've got it all jammed full of houses. The other thing is the snowmobile trail that goes on the north side. There's no access now for that snowmobile trail. They have it in there. The other one on the east side that will get down to Eric's office, that's not there. There's no buffer there for any of that type of stuff. And what is the fire department saying as far as, and we have that little firehouse there, but to get in here or anything like that is, you know, what is the cost of that gonna be, as far as covering all that type of stuff? And then the homeowners association, as far as who's gonna take care of these houses, who's gonna make sure that all these houses are so close together that the upkeep of these houses is taken care of, and who's gonna take care of the complaints and that type of stuff. You know, they're putting it right up to the back of the property line, so I'm gonna be looking at, you know, people's throwing stuff over there, if they put fences in or wandering back there with their dogs on my property. I don't want that, I want to have some buffer in there, but, I don't see that happening, as many houses they're putting in, and those people in the backside, you get all the way down to the front side. You know, where's the space for them to go and have a place for their kids to play? My property, you know, I mean, that's where I come in with this, thing. And then they have the upper northeast corner there, that's wet. That water runs all down through the side of my property, across Emerson Road into some ponds on the other side. So, I know he was saying it goes west to east, and it does, so there'll be plenty of water going through there. And
So
then.
you're concerned about additional runoff onto your property?
I'm worried about the runoff on the property and then the keeping the people out of my property also. The other thing was just the sense of community. There's no community center or anything like that, no pool for these people. Are they going to go down to the lake? Is that kind of where these people are going to recreate? Because you can't swim in the ponds there. You know, there's no sense of community showing other than everybody lives 10 feet apart. I think that's pretty much it, so thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments. I made notes, and I'm sure the applicant has made notes.
I
regarding-
also know too that the original ones that they had from 19 and then 21 were a lot less than what they're showing now. And they were showing two-story, maybe 3-story. We're looking at 5-story apartments now. You know, the densities were quite considerably lower, even on Mr. Cook's 21, with the mobile homes. And then the original one in 19 is considerably less than that. So to get information from what's going on here, to see this is the first bit of information that we're really seeing has been tough. The town, they have a website now, but at least when Mr. Finch was here, he was running this thing and this was his baby. He would have things going on, hey, come out and talk to me. We had at the airport, we had the one here. And then I think there's a sidewalk where I talked to Sarah when they were talking about putting sidewalks in at Ocean Park. I talked to her, but she didn't know anything at that time about it. That was a couple of years ago, I guess, but it's been hard to get information.
How many acres do you have, Peter?
20 or 19.05 or something like that.
I have 14 acres, I say, and they're gonna, we have a hard time with them from the apartments that are existing, walking out through there and coming out. And, you know, coming out with vehicles out there, they're doing all kinds of.
Enough adjustment.
And, I'm Terry Saxby, live on County Road, 28, but I have property off of Emerson Road. So I'm right next to Pete and I have 14 acres there. And the migration of these people are gonna be over in there. And it's gonna be confrontational at minimum, because it isn't gonna happen. We're gonna be out there standing vigilant against this. You know what I mean? People trespassing.
Your property is currently used for.
It's open
recreation?
ag, yep, recreation, just open ag, it's farmed,
Oh, it's farm.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
Your property as well, Peter? Farm?
It's, right now, it's just recreation.
Okay.
I have the pipelines going through that, I have a high tension power line through it.
And those pipelines are right along I mean, not far off of that. We're in corner.
Doreen, did you get their addresses? Just wanna make sure we have. Okay, anyone else on the address board regarding this application? Sir, right in front.
My name's Robert Collins. I'm currently the president of the Canandaigua Sportsman Club, located on Emerson Road. And I don't know if it will, I don't know if it won't, but a lot of times these developments pop up. We're a shooting club. I mean, we're out there during the hours of daylight. You know, firing our firearms, and we just want, you know, I don't know if it will happen, but I just want to make the board aware that these things do happen, that, you know, oh, noise, whatever. So I just want that to be known. Thank you.
How close is the shooting club to this property?
It's up on Emerson Road. If you go north
Yeah.
and you take a right, it's right.
On the north side.
1,000 feet.
We're right next to Mr. Hecker here.
Are you
So-
gonna be, it's gonna be loud?
Oh, it's loud, yeah.
It's always loud.
1,600 feet.
Close enough that it'll be loud here?
It's loud at my house.
I'd say within a quarter of a mile, yeah. I mean, we have shooting events up there.
You have operating hours though.
Yes, we do.
It's not all done.
And I know what, no. I'm just, you know, at 9 AM, that's, you know, out till dusk. That's, when, you know,
Have you ever had any complaints from the neighbors?
we have, but it's not. They're honorary members of the club, that's, you know,
Gotcha.
but, you know, this is kind of like a good thing, bad thing. Maybe we'll get some membership out of there, but
But probably not every single lot owner.
yeah, I don't even, if 5%, I would be ecstatic.
I have a question. Do you do any events at night?
No, we don't.
So it's just 9 AM?
At dusk, 30 minutes, prior to dusk. Club rules, you're supposed to shut down.
I know some clubs are lighted. and they do
Yes.
it at night.
Well, we do have a 5 stand. We haven't been using that lately, but we're trying to, you know, utilize our facility more now. I'm not saying, you know, I would let the board know if we do. But we do have a lit range.
You do have a light.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And-
You
and I-
don't use it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're not currently.
We're just currently not utilizing it.
And I don't know what the rules are, but they're entitled to use their range for whatever they're legally allowed to. I don't know if there's a permit in place that has restrictions or not. But without having that specific information, assume that they're allowed to use it at certain night hours.
Okay. Anyone else? Here? There? Anywhere? Okay, well, I think, Matt, obviously, you're coming back to see us at the next meeting. I think it's the 11th February.
That's the plan.
Okay. And we'll get a little more detail. Hopefully we'll have some of these reviews back from MRB and from code and.
At the 11th, though, no approval could be granted, it's just a discussion, because with the town board, so
Yeah, I think the schedule I saw was action would be taken like the following meeting, right? The end of
The
February.
25th. So I guess what I would offer is we're happy to come back if there are additional things that we haven't discussed that the board is looking for. I think some of the items like the trail, some additional landscape buffer, and that's easy for us to incorporate, and we can come back on the 25th with that. But if you'd like an interim meeting where we can expound on anything that you haven't seen yet, we'd be happy to come on the 11th. We haven't touched on architecture. I don't know if there's any desire. to
No,
look at that.
that's sort of like, I'd like to talk about that a little more too, in
Okay.
terms of the multi-use and.
Well, our goal really is to try to have the potential for a preliminary approval on the 25th, understanding that it might have to go to the first March meeting or what have you. So if we can come on the 11th and talk about architecture and some of those other things, we would like the opportunity to do so, so that we can address those comments that may or may not come from the board.
I do have a question. In your opinion, is there enough room on that, along that north property line to put a vegetative buffer
Yes.
on the back of?
Yeah,
side of
those lots,
property?
those lots are 140 feet deep on the north side, I believe. I can confirm that. And the front setbacks are only 25 feet as part of incentive zoning. So we are trying to make sure that we provide enough for folks to do things in their backyard that they want to do. I know that they are small lots as it compares to some of our surrounding neighbors to the north and to the east, but that's intentional. And I can answer a couple of these questions, maybe not all of them, if you'd like me to.
Sure,
or-
the folks are here if you
Okay.
have a response.
So from a stormwater standpoint, we are not utilizing any of the capacity or otherwise within the park. Obviously, that is the low point, so we are discharging our stormwater management facilities to it, but our project is going to stand alone from a stormwater management standpoint, meaning water quality and quantity. And I'm sure many of the comments that MRB has coming at us are related to stormwater, which we'll of course address. We have to get MS4 sign off, which is the responsible officer for the town before we get our DEC permits for stormwater. So we will be in full compliance with those. And one of those regulations is discharging less than goes offsite today, at least from a rate standpoint. So we will definitely be in compliance with that. Density and height, as this board knows, that form-based code is extremely permissive. This is substantially less dense than the form-based code permits to be done. As part of our incentive zoning application, we had done an as-of-right layout, which can be done a lot of different ways, with over 1,500 units, just showing comparable densities that's permitted within the code without going through an incentive zoning process. So while this is dense, especially compared to the land use it is now, we're substantially less than could be put on the site by what the town has put in place from a zoning perspective. Not affordable, everything's market rate. Obviously the townhomes and single family will be for sale, and those will be market rate for the Ryan Homes product that they build. And then fire department, all designed per code. That's one of many of Mike's comments that we need to address from a code enforcement standpoint. Compliance with the fire code obviously is required before building permits are pulled, et cetera. So we'll be making sure that we're fully in compliance with all of that. I think the rest were more comments than questions, but those are the ones that I had noted to give you an answer on.
Okay. All right. Board have any other questions, suggestions for the applicant? If not, we'll reconvene on the 11th, so we'll continue I guess this is a hearing, or not? It was advertised a hearing.
It's noted as subdivision,
Subdivision, yeah.
which I have to look at.
I would recommend continuing the public hearing for now. I think there might be some changes, not nature, but.
Okay. So I have a motion to continue the public hearing on this application to the 11th of February.
I'll move to continue it to the 11th.
Okay.
Second that.
Motion second, you get, was that a second, Tim? Yes. Thank you. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right,
Thanks, everyone.
thanks. I'm just, if I can't open, I'd really like to see some of the, later plans and details, on that, the sheet, the package.
Can you send that broken up?
Or we can
Notes,
provide some hard
details?
copies. if
Yeah,
you'd
I was
like.
thinking that like a 11 by 17.
How strong are your glasses?
No. I'll get a full set.
Send them to Sarah and you coordinate getting them, or, okay.
Bob, do you need a full set?
It would be nice on these large projects to have.
Down?
I did it on the solar, it would help me.
That'll be okay, electronically. Thank you, Mr. Nick.
You're good?
Yes.
So we'll send 3 or 4 full size and a couple 11 by 17. You guys can use them if you need them.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
No problem whatsoever.
My apologies again for.
Okay, the last item on the review agenda is 2024-151 is a town board referral. Regarding manufactured homes. Mike, you mind going over what the amendment to the code encompasses? Yep. Mike Murphy, he's muted.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
welcome.
All right. So it's a pretty simple amendment. Primarily, it is just going in the same pathway as reducing the minimum square footage for residential construction. This will allow for the placement of what's commonly referred to as single wides within all permitted zoning districts. Currently, town code only allows single wide manufactured homes within zone manufactured home parks. Whereas this amendment will allow it within all zoning districts where single family residential is a permitted use.
Okay. Mike, just as what I read, make sure it's right, they have to sit on a concrete foundation, is that correct?
So they have to sit on a permanent foundation.
Permanent foundation.
Yep.
Yep.
Not on wheels.
It's good. Yep. Okay, board have any questions of, do you understand what the amendment, do you have any concerns about the?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think that doing this would severely impact the value of residential housing in this town. And I am emphatic against it.
Okay.
I think that the potential for a special use permit in the few cases that this may come up would be an appropriate compromise. My fear, my concern is that if we were to eliminate this as part of our codes, we could get a development proposal that is a right by law that everyone is surprised about in sheer number of manufactured homes. I don't think it's consistent with the character, rural character of the town and future development for the town.
Murph, so currently, you said currently they're only allowed in manufactured, in the zoning district, manufactured home district? Or do we have these types of homes in other districts through the town?
So currently, the classification of a single wide is only allowed within a manufactured home zoning district. That's partly due to the actual lot coverage, the lot size, and all of that. So this wouldn't change, say for example, AR2, it would still have to be a 2-acre lot, but then that parcel owner could opt for a single wide to be placed on their parcel.
How's that different from a modular home, which we're seeing built quite frequently.
One in Cheshire, not too long.
Yeah.
Right.
Modular is licensed underneath New York State Department of State. Manufactured home is approved by New York State Department of State, but it's licensed through HUD at a federal level. That's
Yes.
really the only difference.
But they're the same, from a planning board aspect, from a resources aspect, are they the same structures?
Yes.
That's not my experience.
No, Tim,
I would say that, I originally resided in the Hudson Valley. In the Hudson Valley, at least 65% of the homes erected, single residential family homes, were modular homes. Anywhere from 2 to 4 unit homes, full 2-story colonial homes. They come in, they're prefabricated, they have roof sections that go onto them as well. That's a modular. It's different than manufactured housing as it's defined here.
good.
Okay, the major difference is how's it come in, via a crane or via wheels?
Crane.
I mean, that's the thing, mobile homes are coming in with wheels, then put them on a permanent foundation. I think that's the only, really thing I can figure out.
Cheshire, that come in on a crane or?
I don't know how it went in.
Flatbed, it probably had 2 halves.
It
Put
was a
together,
double wide.
put it on a foundation. Yeah.
The development next to the hammocks. They brought modular homes
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, that was a model.
Those are modulars. Manufactured housing or trailers typically have flat roofs.
So your concern, Tim, is the aesthetics or the safety of the units?
No, my concern is that type of housing as a zone is already defined in our zone code. And my concern is that people invest in property based on the character of the community that they're investing in. And I don't think that style of housing, I think that the zoning code already has identified that style of housing as being significantly different. So that's where.
And it should be, and you're saying it should be restricted where it's placed in the town?
It currently has a restriction. I think that if you use a special use permit for the occasion that someone wants to put one of these units up, then it gives the opportunity for the neighboring properties to comment on whether it's objectionable or not. I think you go through seeker to identify whether it's within the character of that community or not. So, for instance, if you have a large family that has a lot of property that wants to subdivide, and this type of housing, we have the opportunity for them to put it in, and the neighbors are okay with it. That's a special use permit process. I think that's more. I think that's a better path forward to accommodate a very small percentage of that type of housing that will be desired in this town.
Okay. So I think what you're saying is it should be not allowed. Your recommendation is that it not be allowed in every zoning district, but in
I think what he's saying is,
certain districts.
I think what he's saying is, it can be allowed in any.
Residential.
With oversight,
With the preference,
with the
Well, with
special
a
use,
special use permit,
special use.
with that process.
we use special use permits for types of housing. No,
Right
you
now,
do.
they're identified as different uses or different uses in the code, in the zoning code. So, yeah, you could add a special use permit to that. You could make it, under permitted uses, it says single family homes under our code right now. That does not include manufactured housing. It could say manufactured housing under A, permitted uses, or
by special exception.
but C, special use.
Well, on one hand, we're trying to make housing more affordable, and certainly manufactured homes are more affordable than a conventional stick home.
We haven't
And-
defined, we have not defined for.
However, and to counter this, it's not just the house that's put on whatever type of house, it's put on the land. So if someone buys a lot, it could be 4 acres or 40. If they're putting a manufactured house on it versus a, you know, regular traditional house. I don't think I agree with your argument about the kind of the character and bringing down property values. I think the property values come from more so the land than the type of house. And I think the manufactured house makes the land and Canandaigua more potentially affordable for potential residents or existing residents that are renting, that are looking for a way to have a piece of the American dream, if you will. And
There's,
be able to buy.
I can share with you guys too, there's a New York State Department of State local government guidance on municipal regulation of manufactured housing. Gets into the difference between manufactured and modular homes. And also kind of some of the restrictions that New York State has on how municipalities can regulate manufactured homes.
Okay.
I think just to say what you're saying, Tim. One, if this board agrees, they agree, we do the code is done. And then the town public don't have anything to say about it. Which I don't like half the time anyways. This way, the way you're saying is that the town, the residents can say something about it. And have a say, which I think is important for the town to have, town residents to have a say. And what they're being built around them. So.
Well,
they may have
there'd
a
be public
process.
comment on the change in code.
From the town board.
Yeah, but
But you're saying if you live in
An
Lakewood
application.
Meadows, right now, you're probably not gonna show up and say, hey, let's not have this town code.
Right,
But if someone if their house burns down, they said, I'm not gonna rebuild a 2-story colonial with 4 bedrooms and 2.5
Right.
baths, I'm gonna build.
Or
but
one level.
now it's important to that person.
Then the
Yeah.
residents of Lakewood Meadows would come out.
Yeah, now it's important.
it's like the 2 gentlemen that own property on the north side of.
Yeah.
Uptown.
Mhm.
Nobody was paying attention when the form based, nobody had this vision of what. I think, what was your term, right by law, 1,500 units? Did anyone have any concept of what that build out would look like? On any of these open space parcels, when you did the seeker on the change of the zone? I don't think so.
Well, I would say we were there then. The concept is that's where we wanted development in Uptown. That's where the whole plan was to develop Uptown for this.
Yeah.
To do
Where are we gonna
that,
put that
to do
development?
this.
And I know it was an assessment
Yeah,
of where in the town
This
is
is
it
what
gonna
it
go
was
based on all
designed
the.
for.
You know, our
Criteria.
comprehensive plans, the 2 primary objectives of the comprehensive plan is to protect agriculture and rural character.
By
So-
allowing, encouraging development in those areas where it's most appropriate.
Right.
Understood, but it's the highest density development in the town or the city of Canada. It's kind of. When I asked them if they had any other examples of a similar development, this density, and the only thing they came close to was the subdivision up there in Farmington. Along Bowden Hill Road. South side of Bowden Hill Road.
Athletics Corners.
I don't know.
Yeah, the county report 41 and 332 on the south side, just across from L&D.
Oh, yeah.
This will be more dense than that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be better than that.
This will be way, I think. I
And
don't know.
I think that Look at, I like what they've done. You know, they're doing a professional job. I just think that the residents of this town will be shocked at what they see.
Okay, well, getting back to this issue, how does the board feel that maybe shouldn't be a carte blanche allowance of manufactured homes in any zoning district? But at the very least, only by special exception or special use?
I would. He swayed me, Kim swayed me. No, I would agree that the more that we can give the public a chance to say something, let them have some part of the process.
My only concern is the criteria for issuing the special use permit. If people come out and say, we don't want a modular home next to us, that brings the wrong kind of people. We hear all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't want that to be the criteria for us approving or denying it.
Look at all you have to do is look at the assessment. And that type of housing doesn't get assessed for the same value as a house with foundation. So
So it
part of
does,
this whole planning
Tim, it does
process
have a
is-
solid foundation. It has to have a solid foundation.
I heard that,
Okay, so it's,
but if I think that we have an obligation to protect the property values of the existing houses, the existing residents of this town. And, you know, you buy a house because of the neighborhood that it's in, location, location, location. And you gave the example. A track house burns down. It's a Ryan home. Every third house is a repeat. And then all of a sudden, you have something that's out of character with that community being proposed. Or by right, could be erected.
Yep. Wondering what kind of rights we have as a board to say that's out of character. You know what I'm saying, we don't want to
Yeah.
get into
Well, we
it.
don't know if it's out of character. What your suggestion is
Seeker,
that the planning board recommends that the town board consider allowing this type of housing by special permit in order to allow public comment related to character and other issues covered by the special permit regulations.
Tim, I don't think secret planning role in this, assuming it's just one home, it still would be classified as a type 2 action.
but aesthetic
No. it's special
is
permit.
part of the character of the community.
Right, yeah.
What's that?
Aesthetic is part of character of the community.
Sure.
Under seeker.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it would be classified as a type 2 action. So
Which
not
means it wouldn't
subject
be a
to-
full seeker review, but your point is that a special use permit would cover that kind of review.
I mean, the planning board itself has similar things to look at. I'm just trying to clarify that seeker wouldn't play a role. It would just be the planning board's findings that you're required to make as it relates to special use permits or site plan.
A single family house doesn't get a full seeker review.
Doesn't get any secret. It's not subject to the regulations. That's what the type 2 action.
What
is.
about but a special use permit would?
We still classify it as a single family home, basically. So state regulations.
So would the
on-
change in zoning
Uh,
be subject to the seeker?
change in zoning. No, it would probably be classified as an unlisted action unless it affects more than 25 acres, then it's a type 1. Or a historic property or something like that.
I don't think,
So.
I think you're saying the same thing, Tim. I think the special use permit would cover would entail, or would require a review that you're looking for
How is the community protected
with the special use permit.
without, if there's no seeker review, how is the community protected from development of the property that's out of character with the community?
I think the planning board still considers that, of course, if there are no more reviews. The seeker is, of course, established by the state, and they just provide different standards for what they say are, we think that this is going to have a substantial impact that should be evaluated further. There's a type 1 actions, or we feel that this action has no meaningful impact that is required further. That's your type 2 action, and everything falls in between is illicit action. So that's just what the state sets out. Secondly, the town could establish its own type 2 actions or type 1 actions. But, you know, that's the state rules. The town has its own local rules. That's the planning board and special use permit findings and stuff. And I think they would probably get it if they're community a little bit.
All right, so wrap this thing up. Would it be the consensus of the board that they could accept provisions similar to what Chris mentioned, that anything outside the manufactured home zoning district would require a special use permit in order to be placed in any other residential zoning district? I would. And I'm not sure where that would fall in the code. There's probably a paragraph somewhere in there, sort of a general special use permit or.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, yeah, it would be just like you're doing short-term rentals, right? Well, you could do either. You're reviewing short-term rentals under 220-35, which is the general special use permit provisions. And then other specific special use permits like a cellular tower, a gas station, have paragraphs between 236 and 262, 220-62. You could add 220-62.3 as manufactured homes, but that's the ordinance committee can figure that stuff out. I think from a broad perspective, the planning board is making its comment.
okay. Corrine, you have that provision, or maybe Chris can help you. And get it in the minutes. Again, is that the consensus of the board?
That
It'd be done by a special use.
be done by a special use.
Yeah.
That
In any district other than the
other than
manufactured.
its current zone.
So
Still awake.
yeah, no, we would you sleep in?
So we don't recommend abolishing the zoning code for manufacturing. We don't recommend change, but we would say that it could apply in other residential
Another
districts.
residential
by
district provides special
use.
exception. Is that something you understand?
Yeah, I get it, and I agree with Tim, and the rest of you.
Oh, okay. So it's not gonna be a hard sell then.
No, I don't think it would be.
All right, as long as we get it in the minutes, Dave's here to, I think, get the drift of what we're talking about. And you have a hearing coming up, February, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, February 24th.
No,
24, yeah.
Kristen has a comment.
Kristen has a comment. Of course.
Well, let's listen.
I was just looking here at the 2015 New York laws. And it says manufactured homes as a single family dwelling in residential district, manufactured home that is affixed to a permanent foundation and conforms to the identical development specifications and standards, including general aesthetic and architectural standards applicable to conventional site-built single-family dwellings in the residential district in which the manufactured home is to be sited shall be deemed to be a conforming single-family dwelling for purposes of the applicable local zoning law or ordinance. So.
That is New York State law,
Mhm.
section.
It's 21B.
Article.
2. I can send it to you. I'll
Please.
email it to you.
It's also, I just sent you an email too with that guidance from the New York State Department of State. It relies heavily on that. It's cited in there.
I don't know
But we still, as a town, can have a zone for manufactured housing products.
We have a
We
manufactured
do,
zoning
but I-
district, so we're not exclusionary in that. We're not excluding it.
Correct.
There is an area of our town.
So,
Is there a conflict in our law?
there's conflict in every upstate New York town's law. That's definitely what the law says. Does that prohibit it being done by special use permit? Not necessarily. It would have to be hashed out with the ordinance committee, and could you do a special use permit? Possibly. I don't think it should restrict your comment to the town board. Your purview is this conformity with New York State regulations and New York State executive law? Your purview is more of a planning capacity. And I think that it is a relevant comment for the town board to hear. Now, the town board will hear it and probably ask me. And if they want to pursue a special use permit, I'll see if we can work out a way to have a special use permit for manufactured housing. I'm not 100% sure that I can do that, but I would look into it and see if we could. But the fact that it's an executive law isn't necessarily something you should consider.
Well, I did hear you say it conforms to the aesthetic of other single-family residences. And here again, a pitched roof versus a flat roof.
Are the manufactured homes, are they flat roofs now, or are they? I mean, I don't
I think the
remember
ones on
the-
wheels are still flat roofs. The,
On wheels,
the
on blocks,
modular
on
homes
concrete.
are. So perhaps we need to see how New York State defines the two, because there is a difference between the modular home and the manufactured home.
Right.
There's a difference in the assessment and, assessment categories and things like that. So, yeah.
And then again, that's something that town board, the ordinance committee, and me, when I'm wearing my town attorney hat, will hash out and figure out if there's a way to use a special use permit to regulate that.
And I'm not sure how many occurrences we have. Where somebody wants to put a manufactured one. I know we have modular. Well,
I don't think you'll ever have one of the scenario I proposed that someone's
burn
gonna
it,
do it
could
Lakewood Meadows.
rebuild.
Because it just doesn't seem like something somebody would do. But I mean, it's possible.
All right,
I don't think an insurance company will allow you.
Right.
I think we have a consensus. And, pass that on to the town board and they can consider the recommendation and deliberation. Or not. I think we're not excluding, I think, right, again, I don't want to play lawyer, so, but by allowing it by special use, we are allowing it, but we're
That's why,
allowing it with conditions.
that's why I'm hesitant to say right now, oh no, you can't do that because of New York State executive law. It's something that the ordinance committee and myself as town attorney would have to think about. Did you?
No.
By the way, your town board member.
Maybe that's why the the draft was produced in the first place to comply with the executive. order.
That's exactly why.
Oh,
Sarah and Mike Murphy realized that was in there and said, oh, we better change this. So it got kicking through the ordinance committee to essentially be in conformity with the law.
I remember.
It was sort of simultaneously with minimum dwelling size, so it sort of matched up with that. But it's an effort to bring things into conformity. That being said, your comment still stands and is relevant to the board, whether it's legal or not.
Legal is interpretation.
Okay. So that's our position. All right, we got the minutes to approve from January 14th meeting. Karine produced. Do we have any additions or corrections to published minutes? All right, my last draft. If not, give me a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes of last meeting.
Second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Karine. Nice job, as always. We have a surety release from Mr. Nelson.
Do it part time here.
Yeah, what we gonna do? Who's our
I
backup?
could, I'm back up.
You're the backup?
I'm back up. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you can look at it.
Okay.
It's 11 grand.
I didn't see it.
Nelson Bill, middle check.
Well, it is looking at that. I'm going to recommend
Yes.
that the town board direct town staff that there should be a consent agenda for all these.
Consent agenda.
So it's the town board, your town manager put together just so you can say, I move the letters of credit. And then everyone can say, great. That's what the town board just started doing. And I think everyone agrees it's 1,000 times better.
Well, other than Mark does like to spend some time looking at.
Okay, then
Okay.
that's fair. Then
Whatever.
I
Candace really enjoyed
I think
it.
most of us just feel.
Okay, yeah.
If everybody else.
Viewing my notes.
No, that's valid. Withdrawn.
Just to Mark's credit, he goes out and looks at
So I can.
these properties to see.
Well,
what's-
my point is, once he's done that, then, oh, you would still have to list it out, and you would still go look at them.
One sweep.
I will motion to release $11,275 to CPN 22093. Middle Cheshire 3610.
Okay. Very good.
Second.
Yeah. I will, yeah.
And motion second to give Mr. Nelson his surety back. Regarding his property in Middle Cheshire, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, other business, we did receive a resignation from Scott Neal. He has some issues with his mother as far as her health, which he feels he has to attend to personally, and he also got a promotion at work, and so his work duties are more intense, so he felt he has to resign. So Lindsay is certainly aware of this. Tim is willing to step up and fill Scott's position, which we will recommend to the town board. And they have to make that approval, and then we'll be shopping for another owner.
Shopping.
So if anybody has any suggestions, I haven't checked with Lindsay if there's anybody in the queue. But if there is, we'll
I am
talk.
doing the newsletter the next week, so.
Post.
Okay, because I think there's an opening for the zoning ZBA, right? So now there's ZBA as well as Alderman, so. Chris,
Yes, sir.
next meeting, we are scheduled to discuss the cell tower. Down on County Route 8.
Yes, that is correct.
I don't think we have wait a minute, we did receive some.
I thought I reviewed something that was recent.
Did we get-
I shut it down.
I haven't seen anything,
I
but I haven't checked like this week.
You thought there were plans, but I
Yeah.
think what we'd asked for was a response to the neighbors
Yeah.
attorney's letter.
Yeah,
And you're required to have 7 days prior to the meeting. No,
Yes.
we 7 days, but then the other guy gets 7 days. I think,
Oh, wait a minute, we were
I think
talking about
80
our rules of procedure. We want to see
Yeah.
anything that's to be considered at that meeting on the 11th, the week
Yeah.
before.
so we told Verizon to get their stuff in advance of 7 days so that the neighbors could respond. Thank.
So like today then?
It doesn't matter. You're gonna see stuff by some.
Well, then I think at some point, I don't know if the neighbors then respond to the other response. And then
Well,
you were gonna somehow, at some points,
Mm-hmm.
lay in front of us what the legal position is regarding the Federal Communications Act,
Yes.
how it applies.
Uh,
Okay,
Which will in large part turn on, what the neighbors and the applicant say. In terms of the shot clock,
I knew Tim would ask you didn't bring it.
I'm glad you guys are all thinking about it. Eric texted me during your last meeting. That didn't attend, that talked to Sarah and she and I agreed it wasn't
We
necessarily.
still reappointed you in spite of it. But, yeah. It was close. It was a close
That's good.
vote. Close vote.
You didn't have anybody to
It
tell
was
me.
3-2.
Well, I don't wanna know which three. it is.
Shot clock.
Shot clock. It expires on the 28th of February, if rough numbers. At your next meeting, I've arranged with Nixon Peabody's attorneys that they will, on the record, waive the shot clock for a period of time. So we won't have to be worried about it. I'd already reached out to them and said, hey, the day of your planning board meeting, I said, you better put in writing that you're waiving this. And they said, well, actually, can we just do it on the record? And I agree. Because there's time, there's ample time. If we're not outside of the shot clock. Keep an eye out for stuff that's submitted. Though, you know, there are federal regulations regarding this, federal case law as well. I will give you a I guess, more specific direction once we know both sides' positions. But it's a special use permit. There's nothing that says you have to grant it. There's no federal law that says, don't worry what the planning board says. They're gonna have to do whatever the applicant wants. That's not what the law says. So come at it like any special use permit. Does it meet these requirements? You know, and go through the section in 220
Well, the
41.
argument that was made was they have to show cause to be able to cite.
Oh, no, that's an interesting one. And that's part of, I wanna see what the two attorneys who are expert in this area of law say about that. From what I know, without having read their summaries or their expertise, they do have to show necessity. Now, you had engineers for Verizon and lawyers for Verizon said we have necessity. It's on page such and such of our application. And then the gentleman from Long Island, the attorney, said it's not necessary because everybody gets good cell service right there. My understanding of the way cell service works though is and the tower goes like this. This tower isn't providing cell service to these neighbors because they also, what the engineer said is there's an area of need on Route 332 and the 332 corridor, I think he said. So I think it's shooting down towards them. Is that not your question, Tom?
Well, the argument was that by their own data that they publish, and the FCC is it publishes for 4G coverage, they're not showing any gaps.
Or
That was-
5G, there are no gaps.
Yes.
Wait, hang on, because what I heard,
So
it's,
he was arguing that Verizon's own data that's published.
Yeah.
Doesn't show the need.
what I heard, and I could be mistaken, and this is quite frankly why I want to wait on this particular piece of advice, because I don't know the answer, but they'll tell me. I heard Verizon say we have need, and the guy from Long Island say, yeah, but your need is 4G, not 5G. Or no,
it's
your need
5G.
is 5G, you're
And
good
the
on
law,
4G.
the law says.
And I don't know what the law says, if it says if you have any need or just basic need.
Mark was the one who mentioned that he was losing his Apple
Oh, yeah.
thing at the light.
Yeah, so I don't know the answer to that, but if they already
if
have,
that
if
is-
they have no need for 5G, then I don't know what their position is.
But if the law says that they have to show need and they don't show need, do we even entertain the application?
Yeah, they're still entitled to apply for a special use permit.
Yeah. I think their need is their need to be competitive. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, and is that grounds for?
Hey, they said they can put it anywhere on their property, they have permission, to put it anywhere on their property.
Yeah.
So
Well,
there's
yeah, they
the
got
other
the-
side of the, what, there must be a
That's
rail,
yeah,
a
streams.
rail line that goes through that property.
Wetlands. Okay, well, we'll worry about that next meeting, maybe. So they got a week to get their supplement material in, so if they don't get it within a week.
Well, you don't know if there's like a little speck of paint.
It says the lawyer.
Okay,
That's right.
I've lost control. I've lost control here. Quick, come on.
It's
It just showed me a red screen. That's what it's a pretty good ad. Yeah, sorry.
That's their coverage or lack of coverage?
Their marketing.
Can you hear me now?
All right, Amanda, we're ready.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:45 PM. See,
I say,
everyone second.
Favor?
aye.
Bye.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.